to have on.
For everyone who went to the floor, we're going to continue our board meeting with the rest of the superintendent report. I believe the architect is going to go through and give presentations, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here this evening. I'm going to go through the projects that we just toured. I'll go through them in a little bit more detail. As always, I'll limit my presentation to about 3.5 hours per school, but we'll try to be a little faster than that. Tonight I have my glasses so I can see the screen. And did you get this thing? See if I get, there you go. So, I've been practicing. All right, so at Reddington Middle School, what I'm going to do is start and go through each one of the projects through each of the schools. So this is the same on a per school basis. So infrastructure and facilities maintenance projects. We talked about the existing Federal Pacific or FP electrical service equipment and replacing those panels. All the panels that you saw if you went into the rooms will be replaced in location with new updated panels that will have a new underwriter's laboratory certification to, which is very important. So it'll provide you with additional space as far as additional breakers and an updated underwriter's laboratory certification. Replace existing fire alarm system. As you did see, that fire alarm system will be replaced with an addressable panel. What you see is the panel. All the devices on the walls will be replaced, which means all the horn strobes, all the pull stations, and all the wiring to each of those devices. That encompasses a complete fire alarm system replacement. Right? The roof replacement, the front gym and the 400 wing, as you can see the locations of those two areas, it'll be a complete roof replacement. Existing roof will be replaced down to the roof deck. New roof, new insulation will be placed so that we'll have positive drainage towards all the drains, and that you'll have no leaking after that occurs. There'll be a 25-year warranty on the new roof. This way, if there's any leaks after the roof is replaced, the district will make a call to the general contractor, the roofer did the roof. They will make the correction at no cost to the district. Existing boilers at the new wing, all of the existing boilers will be replaced with a manufacturer called Airco boilers. They're much more efficient. They're smaller boilers, and their operating costs are substantively lower than your existing boilers, and they'll have a 20 to 25-year warranty on those as well. Similar to the roof, here's an issue, you make a call, it'll get corrected. Replace the classroom HVAC unit ventilators. So the unit ventilators that you saw there are the long, low horizontal units. Those unit ventilators are heating and ventilating only, H and V only. Those are replaced with HVAC, heating, ventilating, and air conditioning, in which case the compressor that provides the air conditioning, similar to what's at your home, will be located outside the building or on the roof. So they'll go from H and V to HVAC. 2004 HVAC rooftop units. These rooftop units provide a ducted supply and plenum return to some of the existing spaces that you see, and those boxes will be replaced on the roof. They're called packaged roof units or rooftop units. The compressors are already in that box. We'll replace it with a new roof curb, so it'll be 10 to 12 inches from the surface of the roof, and there'll be no issues with regard to snow buildup, drift, or anything of that nature. Once again, these new units will have a 20-year warranty, and they will have better. They'll operate more efficiently. Therefore, your operating costs will be lower once you have the new unit in place. They placed 2004 HVAC rooftop units for room 203 and the science rooms. My comments are similar. The box that you see on the roof will be replaced with a new, more efficient rooftop unit. Similarly, it is a ducted supply and a plenum return. All the comments that I made on that are similar. Similarly, again, 2004 HVAC rooftop units for the 500 wing classrooms. These will be replaced in kind with new units on the roof and will provide a ducted supply and a plenum return. So when you take a look at this room, what does that mean? You'll see the supply registers in the ceiling as opposed to, so that unit there will provide a ducted supply, so similar diffusers that are in this room's ceiling as opposed to a unit ventilator on the floor. 2004 edition existing unit ventilator condensers. These are the same upgrades with regard to H&V to HVAC, heating and ventilating to HVAC. Same comments would apply here as well for the 2004 edition. Classroom Airedale units. The Airedale units are the vertical units. The vertical units, the compressor is in the unit itself. Those will be replaced in kind, provide HVAC with HVAC. Again, new compressors will operate more efficiently and the operating costs will be lower. 2004 HVAC rooftop units for the new wing, same comments apply. The new unit will be placed on a new roof curb, provide ducted supply and a plenum return. 2004 HVAC rooftop units for the classrooms and the media center. So you're going to start to see it's the same product that just serves a different location. Okay. 2004 HVAC rooftop units for the cafeteria. Same comments. Again, a new box on the roof, more efficient operating, still ducted supply, plenum return. Integrated building management system, or BMS. So what the BMS does is it controls all the operating units within the building, all the unit ventilators, all the rooftop units. They'll all be controlled by a digital building management system that they'll be able to control by the director of facilities or the business administrator to make certain that the entire school is running at optimum capacity and operational efficiency, right? So that's important. This is a wireless system, so all these devices are put onto each one of your operating units so that you can see what they're doing, how much fresh air they're taking in, what the ambient temperature of the room is, what the set point of the room is, all on one integrated BMS instead of going to an individual thermostat on a per room basis. That's the difference. BMS, whole school, individual units are on a per room basis. Repave at school, this was talked about. What's important is that when you see substantive cracking, we will have to rebuild the base of the existing pavement so that we can stop that cracking. For the most part, when you see cracking at the surface, what we're going to do is do a 2-inch scarification and repave. So we're going to remove the existing pavement down to 2 inches and then repave that in areas where the cracking is substantive. We'll do localized base rebuilding so that you won't have that new cracking again. Right? Similarly, they will be positively sloped to the area drains that are there, so you won't have any ponding or any freezing in the building. Repave playground areas, same comment. If the cracking, not like that cracking tells me that's a through and through crack, which means the base needs to be rebuilt. Otherwise, you won't. If you did a scarification or repave for that type of crack, the crack's coming back again. So we've located the areas where we have to rebuild localized bases so that we don't have a recurrence of the cracks that you have now. So it's a combination of a scarification or repave and a localized rebuild of the base to prevent new cracks. Right. New paved path at the building perimeter. You can see the degradation with regard to the curbs in the center and regard to the cracking on the sidewalks. So all of those sidewalk panels and the curbing will be replaced. Plus, we'll make it compliant with the barrier-free or ADA accessibility requirements, right, on the path from the main entrance to the barrier-free spaces, and then along the path itself. Replace the existing PA system. Same comment. This is in the main office. This will be replaced with an upgraded system, so that you won't have to use one phone in the main office to use that system. It's a little bit more sophisticated than that. And it'll provide many more options to reach critical locations in the building and the entire building. The new mass notification system, this similar comment with regard to the systems there now. 3 key lock sets, interior and exterior doors. We need to make certain that the entire building is on one master key system and that the keys are operating properly and safely on each one of those doors. New emergency backup generator. So the backup generator will be located in the exterior as close to the electrical room as possible. We're looking at shielding that with an acoustic fence or acoustic barrier to minimize any noise that the generator may make. It would be a natural gas fire generator, so not oil, but natural gas fire generator, and it will provide backup systems for the school. So this is not an emergency generator. Will keep the lights on enough for you to get out of the school. A backup generator will keep certain systems running, like the lights, like the heat, anything that's critical to maintain occupancy of the school in case of power outage, right? So this is a backup generator so that you can continue using the school and have, and the backup generator comes on within 10 seconds of the power failure, right? So there's no delay, there's no lag time, and that the district and the school can continue operating as normal, and that there's no issue with regard to fuel supply to the generator. It will be a natural gas generator. This is the renovation of recess fields that we talked about. This is a repaving and an enlargement of this area, as we discussed. Similarly, with the localized base rebuilding, repaving on top, and an enlargement of this as well, and restriping for as many play areas as we can generate. And they'll be overlapping, but it'll give the district more flexibility to use the space. New athletic track. So I saw some of the board members tried to run around that track and then make it back to the board meeting. So the new track will be a new rubberized track. It will be a porous surface. It will have edging on both sides. It will have striping, of course, on the track. It will either have a combination of subgrade or perimeter drainage, so that you won't have a scenario where you'll have a sheet flow drainage off the track onto the low side. So that will all be accommodated, and we've met with the township engineer. So any of these projects that are outside of the buildings, we will review with the township to make sure they are amenable to anything that is done here, and it is code compliant, and then we'll execute those projects. So this is a new track all the way around that existing field. The media center renovation. Ceiling, lights, flooring, HVAC that we talked about before, and casework and furniture, right? So that's the extent of the media center renovation as far as what that design entails. I know we have the lights have been updated to LED lights, but we're looking at new ceiling, new lights, and it can define some subspaces a little bit better, and have the students use the spaces kind of a little bit more efficiently. New window treatments. So the window treatments that you saw in the school are they're louvers, they're Venetian blinds, if you will. The treatments that you see here in this building are roller shades. Treatments that we are proposing are roller shades, but they have but you can see through them. They're not blackout shades. They have a 3 to 5% opacity, which means you can see through them. They reduce solar gain, and they reduce heat load inside the room. So all those things are assets to those shades, but they'll be roller shades similar to the ones you see here, and not the blinds that dissimilar to what you've seen. New furniture in the instructional spaces. Although I know I've tried to replicate the desk with the tennis balls on the bottom. On the third picture, we're going to propose that the district do something different. All the furniture that we've seen in new schools is called, it's actually like flexible furniture, right? The kids don't stay still, they fidget. So most of the new furniture that's designed is designed to accommodate that fidgeting, so that the furniture can then enhance the learning environment. So some of the new furniture that the district is going to review is going to be to enhance that learning environment for the kids, and make it a little bit more comfortable to learn. I think that's the intent of an updated furniture. Okay, so Jason, want me to skip through the non-referendum section?
That's bring up the Hollenbrook presentation, please.
It was easy. Okay, so this is at Hollenbrook. replace the existing fire alarm system. Similarly, the fire alarm system is composed of the panel that you see there. It'll be a new addressable panel. What does that mean? That means when there's a location that is triggered, the fire department looks at the panel and they can find what device triggered the alarm, right? It's called an addressable panel. So that's one thing that gets changed. All the devices, all the horn strobes and the horns on the walls will be changed. Pull stations will be changed, and the wiring to those devices will be changed. So it'll be a whole fire alarm system upgrade. Right? Replace the 2000 edition rooftop units. Similar comments to before. New rooftop unit provide a ducted supply and a plenum return. We replaced along with the roof curve as well. Integrated building management system, or a BMS. So now, since I described the BMS before, I was going to quiz everybody, but so the BMS again is going to give the director of facilities and the administration access to all of the operating units, all the rooftop units, all the unit ventilators in one program, and then you can modulate those temperatures based on the season from one location. Repaved playground areas. Similarly, it'll be a combination of a 2-inch scarification or repave with a localized base rebuild. When we see substantive cracking, we'll rebuild that base so you won't have new cracking, and then we'll have positive slope to the existing drains to make certain that you don't have ponding in the wintertime that will freeze. Right? Rekey lock sets. Similarly, our comment is the same as the previous building. We want to make sure the classrooms are more safe than they are now, easy to lock in case of a lockdown. All classroom locks always have a free out, which means when you're on the inside of the classroom, you always can get out without a key. Right? But when you can lock the door quicker than you do now, you don't need magnets. New emergency backup generator, comment is similar, be located next to, as close to the electrical room as possible. It'll be shielded by acoustic panels to minimize any noise impact, any perimeter noise impact to any neighboring locations. And again, as a backup generator, it will come on within 10 seconds after a power failure. You will not notice that the generator will come on. The power will continue as usual, and it will maintain your lights, maintain your heat, maintain all the critical items for you to stay and use the facility without interruption. Interactive whiteboards, we talked about, pretty self-explanatory in the classrooms. These are the boards we updated to be more current with the technology. Life skills suite, something that I wish that my 14-year-old kids would learn and understand how to cook for themselves. So this is something that we are upgrading here in the district as well. Right. The media center renovations. Some casework, some ceiling and lights, some flooring to finish out some of the upgrades in there. It's a fairly newer facility, but there's some work that's yet to be done. So flooring, some of the lighting. This, Jason, nothing there, right? So those are the projects, less than 3.5 hours. Those are the projects for both schools. See if anyone has any specific questions with regard to any of those projects.
Any questions from the board? Okay. Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to see if anyone in the audience has any questions specific to the referendum. So if you have any questions specific to the referendum, please come up to the podium, state your name and down your phone. Okay. Thank you very much.
Very well. Thank you very much.
While we're on the topic of the referendum, I just want to provide 2 reminders real quick. One, Tuesday, I think it's a Tuesday, October 28th, I will be here, Jason, our architect, will be here for an open public forum. Any member of the public that wants to come to hear about all of the projects in the referendum, we can do a Q&A. It's not a formal board meeting, so it can be relatively casual. We'll be here October 28th, and that'll be our last public forum before the referendum. So if you're hearing in the community, any parents or community members have questions, encourage them to either reach out, or if they can attend in person, October 28th at 7 p.m. We'll meet in this room. Second reminder or follow-up is at the last board meeting, all board members had a challenge. and each of you received 20 pieces of marketing materials to hand out to family and community members. And you were going to get a prize, and I delivered. So I brought a prize. The problem is, I don't know if I heard from everybody. I heard that one board member had almost all of their pieces of marketing materials out, and another board member told me last week that he gave all of his out. So, brought a prize. Kevin, sorry for the bag. This is the only one I could find. So you have to share it. Justina and Paulo, I think, gave out their all of their marketing materials. I have candy because it wasn't a trick; it was a treat. And I brought plates in case you want to share some candy. So I will give it to Paulo and Justina to start with the candy, and feel free to pass it around. And I think you can pass it around because I trust everybody talked to at least 20 friends and neighbors and gave out their marketing materials.
I confess I chickened out at the barn dance last weekend.
I will admit, it's not easy, like to just approach someone and say, hey, have you heard about our referendum? Let me talk to you about it. It feels very unnatural, but I appreciate everybody promoting and talking about, giving information out about the referendum. So. It's completely cheap. It's not on the agenda, so you know it's yeah. Okay, so just keep going. Matt, could you bring up the best
Passing area.
So I'm thrilled to be here tonight to talk to the board and members of the public about our Sustainable Jersey program and recognize the hard work of those folks that are here, many of the folks that are here in the audience. Sustainable Jersey for Schools is a voluntary program that provides a lot of resources to New Jersey public schools and to municipalities as well. And Reddington Township municipality is also involved in Sustainable Jersey as well. It helps us identify actions to become more sustainable. It gives us tools, resources, and we have received, Jason, I couldn't quote it, but I would say tens of thousands of dollars worth of grants, if not close to $100,000 worth of grants from Sustainable Jersey. But they also highlight school districts and reward our accomplishments for the work that we do in greening our buildings, building sustainable communities, and looking out for the wellness of both staff and students. They also have a program called the Digital Star. In this age and in this era of students and teachers and folks being more online, it encourages the mindful implementation of digital learning. Even today, we had our committee on AI, and one of the things that came up when we were talking is about how we have to teach kids to really be responsible when they're online. And AI is here, and they're using it, and to be responsible. And the Digital Star recognizes teaching digital learning and those communications skills in a really responsible way. Sustainable Jersey, we're one of 67% of New Jersey school districts participating. You can see that there are only 64 schools silver certified, so just remember that number, 64 schools in the entire state, and 305 are bronze certified. And Sustainable Jersey is celebrating their 10 years as well. And this is connected with our strategic work. I know that we're going to engage in some new strategic planning this year, but we want kids to feel connected, valued. Look at those 4 words: a shared sense of community, an awareness of themselves and others and their environment, and to ultimately understand the impact of their decisions. So I'm pleased to tell you that these are our results. All 4 schools in the district received the silver certification. Remember, 64 schools in the state. We are 4 of those 64, which is our entire district, and 3 out of our 4 schools received the Digital Star. It requires at least 350 points to be silver certified, and you can see we have schools that are well above our 350 points. And the Digital Star is a fantastic add-on to this recognition, this award. So we have some folks to thank from all of our schools. I know that not everybody could be here tonight, but I just have some certificates of thanks for our folks that worked so hard. I wish it could be more like a bonus check or something like that, but unfortunately can't do that. So when I call your name, if you could come up, grab your award, and just stay up here. We'll grab a picture before you all leave. So Tim Charleston and Betsy Freeman. I don't think Betsy is here. Tim, come on. Jen's here tonight. Mrs. Mooney is here with us. Why don't you join us for the picture? I mean, you were in your first year with BP last year. You were like, sustainable what? But come on up. At Hollenbrook, Dr. Moss and Teresa Epster. Three Bridges School, Kristen Higgins, Tiffany Barca, and Ann Romano. From White House School, Dr. Ann DeRosa, Emily Bangles, and Wendy
I'll give her.
Thank you. From the district level, Jason Bohm, Dr. Stacy Brown, Sarah Pouch, and Don Reese. Let's get a picture. Celebrate.
I was wanting to start that.
Thank you, everybody. This recognition really could not be possible without all of their hard work. The Sustainable Jersey application really does require a ton of effort on their part. And there are others that aren't here tonight. Our Green Committee, chaired by Beth, Pam and Rich sit on that committee. We talk about our green goals all the time. And then we have tons of folks from our community that also sit on the Green Committee as well. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. What's really nice, I think those of us who are on the school boards, we received an email that we'll have a special luncheon and recognition at the School Boards Association next week as well. So this is not just a district recognition, this is really a state level recognition. Here are some of our highlights from around the schools, I should say. Some pictures of kids, weighing trash and teaching other kids about recycling, and even some of our outdoor spaces like the food trucks we bring here in March, and our staff enjoying a really nice professional development day, but with a thanks by having food trucks here. So that's everything. This is our Sustainable Jersey Award, and thank you all so much for your hard work. Really appreciate it. Any questions from the board? You can clap if you want. The next part of my superintendent's report is state required reporting out to the Board of Education and the public our NJSLA results from our administration this past spring and our district assessment results from this past year. I'd like to introduce Dr. Brown.
Good evening. So I'm going to walk you through the literacy assessments for the district, starting with NJSLA. So typically I'll stop at the end of each section for questions, but if you have a question about a specific grade level and you don't want to wait to the end, you just let me know and I will stop for you. So this is our first NJSLA slide. Just as a review, some of you have seen these in previous years. It's color coded, so the darker the color, the better the proficiency level. So the purple that's almost black is exceeding, and the dark purple is meeting. Those are what make up our proficiency percentages. And then the approaching, partially met, and did not yet meet are the ones that are considered either close to meeting, but not meeting currently. So our third graders this year have a 49% meeting and exceeding, which is above the state, but somewhat atypical for us. We don't normally score this close to the state, but we'll talk about this particular score more when we see the longitudinal slides. Fourth grade is a very consistent grade level. They do well from year to year, and they have a 75% meeting and exceeding, which is very similar to what they had last year. Fifth grade is another consistent, high-performing grade level with an 81% meeting and exceeding. Sixth grade is above the state at 63% meeting and exceeding, and then they're somewhat in line with where they were the year before. They did have some changes to their schedule, they had some changes to their curriculum, but they were hanging about where they were previously. Seventh grade did well with an increase from where they were last year with a 72% meeting and exceeding, and a nice section of students that are exceeding the expectations in the grade level. And then eighth grade is at a 66% meeting and exceeding. This is an improvement from last year. We made some staffing changes. We had new staff in this grade level. It worked out really well. Last year, they were much closer to the state line, so they've made some nice improvements. They did have some long-term subs in this grade level, but despite that kind of disruption that comes with having a teacher different than what you're used to from year to year, they did still make an improvement. This is our last NJSLA slide for the overall grade levels. Do you have any questions before I move on? So then we'll move into the longitudinal slides. So now these slides are showing scores from one year to another. The light purple is the 2018 scores, and then it moves to the right to dark purple, which is our more current scores, starting with third grade on the left, and then moves through eighth grade as you move to the right. Now, third grade, as you can see here, these scores are very atypical for us. This is about a 20 percentage points difference from what we typically see in this grade level from year to year. Sixth grade had a little bit of a decline, but they were in range of where they were the year before. And then fourth, fifth, seventh, and eighth all either stayed right in range where they were, or they made some nice increases from last year. Now, these are different children as they move through the same grade. So this is a different cohort of children as they move through third grade, as they move through fourth grade, which is different from this slide, which is also looking over time, but this is the same students as they move from one grade to another. So third graders in the light purple as they move into fourth graders in dark purple. Then the next one is fourth graders in the light purple as they move to fifth graders in the dark purple. And except for the one grade level, we have some really nice increases in scores. And I want to specifically point out seventh to eighth grade. That does look like it's a little bit of a dip, but if you compare this to last year's slide, this is actually better than they've performed previously. They're starting to close that gap. So our new hires in that grade level have been doing a really nice job, and it's trending in the right direction. Do you have any questions about the longitudinal slides before I move on? These ones can be a little complex to look at. Okay. So then we'll move to our subpopulations. These are our scores separated by the subpopulation of race. And for the most part, they've hung right about where they were in previous years, which is a good thing. We do have a decline in one area, but it's important to look at the percentage of the district that the subpopulation makes up. If the subpopulation is very small, a handful of students can make that number swing a little wildly in one direction or another. So for the most part, overall, we're trending in the same area for these subpopulations that we were on previous years. These are our scores by gender. This is very typical for us. This is very typical for schools across the United States. This is very typical for schools in multiple different countries. What is interesting about this is as students move into young adulthood, this separation from girls doing better than boys in literacy starts to reverse itself, and it evens itself out as they move into young adulthood. So although currently our girls are doing better than our boys, research will show us in the United States, and I believe in England, they have a tendency to reverse that as they become older. These are our proficiencies by program. That the ELL population is what we call our MLs here. And except for a few of these subpopulations, they stayed about where they were before. Now, the ML population is a little tricky to track. And that's because as students become proficient in English, we pull them out of this program and put them in the general population, and their scores become part of that gen ed population instead. So you're really not going to ever see a very large passage rate in the ML population because we would have removed them and put them into regular classes because they wouldn't have need the services anymore. So if you look at our gen ed population, where all of those students generally are counted and they move to, it has an almost 80% proficiency rating. So as they move out of that ML program, they are finding success in the classroom. Do you have any questions about our subpopulations before I move on?
I have a question on the slides that we've been looking at. It seems like the percentages for 2018 to 2019 seem to be higher in a few of them. Can you pinpoint that to
In
anyone?
which particular ones? Because like in this one, by programming, they're not higher. You have one in particular you're looking at?
If you do the male and female, if you go back to even all grades for
So-
race, some of them seem to be, I'm just noticing a little bit of a trend here, so I'm just curious if you know, even the
Most
cohorts
likely,
as
you're going
well.
to see this trend across the United States because the 2018-19 school year was the year before COVID. Then you have a break. You'll notice that the 2019-2020 school year isn't there because that's the year that we were not here for COVID. And then the 2020-21 school year is the first year back. So then what you're seeing is a recovery from that COVID experience. So like here, the males in 19 were at 67%, and then in the 2022-23 school year, they were about that same percentage again. Looking back here at our Asian and our multiple races, those all were at lower proficiencies in the 2018-19 school year than they were here. So it depends on the subpopulation that you're looking at. I'm not necessarily seeing a trend all the way across all populations or all grade levels as of right now.
I mean, I'm just looking at the slide, slide 10, ELA achievement and growth.
Which one is it?
Slide 10, I believe, ELA achievement and growth,
grade
like grade 3, grade 6, grade 7, grade 8. It just seems like,
So
yeah, that was the one.
this one.
Nope.
Yeah,
the one I'm talking
this
about.
one.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at this one, grade 4 has made an improvement, grade 5 has made an improvement, grade 6 had made an improvement on that 2018 score last year. They just haven't made it this year, and they did have some disruption in their program and a decrease of instructional time and a new curriculum. 7th grade is almost exactly the same as they were, maybe a percentage or two off. And grade 8 we've been focused on for a while as having some curricular changes and then some staffing changes. So again, I'm not seeing an overall trend, although maybe pockets in some areas more so than others.
Stacey, I think you bring up an important point. So there's a lot of factors that we might not be able to account for. It's sort of like the world looked very different pre-COVID, post-COVID. But one of the things that we talk about constantly in leadership is changes in staffing. There have been a lot of staffing changes since the 2018-19 school year. We have a relatively newer staff. We've had some transient staff. We've had some maternity leaves in certain grade levels that created disruption. And it's getting harder to fill positions, especially long-term sub positions where we might have a teacher in there for 2 or 3 weeks, and then another teacher stays for 3 or 4 months, and then another teacher might come in after that as well. So I think some of our retention recruitment efforts are going to be really important, but I think some of this comes down to some things in staff as well. Again, I agree with you. There's a lot of grade levels that we've seen improvement since 18-19, but in the grade levels that we've seen maybe not as much of that upward trend, I can point to some significant changes that happened at a grade level potentially in staffing.
Anything else?
Yeah, could you comment on grade 3? I know you said we were going to talk about it. What's striking me is that it's both lower than the prior year and it's also lower than the year after we returned from COVID. So I'm just curious what your hypothesis is about what's happening and what do you think the district should do to address that?
There's certain things that occur in highly successful classrooms across the district. Like I'll point to like the fourth and fifth grade, that they're in the upper 70s, high 80s. And in those classrooms, the teachers are retained from year to year. They're a really solid group. They're familiar with the curriculum and they've made like adjustments. They really know what works best with their students. They work really closely with the instructional coaches. So they're using all the resources the district provides them. They follow the curriculum very closely as it's written with enough professional choices to make it their own, but still have a very consistent approach from classroom to classroom. And those are the things that we're seeing in the most successful classrooms in the district and that we're looking to ensure are in the other areas as well.
So you had turnover in the grade 3. I'm looking for what's the hypothesis of why is it lower versus the prior year and also lower versus the year that we came back from COVID?
We've targeted that to a specific area. It has to do with some changes in staff,
Okay,
and it has to do with how closely the teachers are following.
thank you.
I have a related question. Do we have other data points from when that grade 3 was in grade 2? Or are there other tests? Is there other information that we can confirm it wasn't a testing issue or a problem at that time? It is related.
This wouldn't be a testing issue because we have similar tests in other areas that aren't showing this issue. If it was an overall district issue, we would be seeing it everywhere and we're not. So we do have information from these students as second graders, and at that point with what we have, they were not performing at this.
I have some of that data that I'll share in Ed Tech in our next. That was one of the requests from Ed Tech, was to look at some longitudinal data. Now, we don't have NJSLA prior to third grade. Third grade's the first time they take it, but we do have iReady. So I'm compiling some other data to just look at that cohort of students as they started in kindergarten and then move their way forward through third grade as well.
Anything else?
I did want to ask for the cohorts, what percentage or total number of students do we say is too low to really look at the data? Because we had some 2%, 4% of the population seems.
It goes more with number of students. So you look at anything and believe that has 10 students or more. That's why when we do our subpopulations, we do them by district and not by grade level, because we don't have enough in some of these populations in order to look at it by grade level. A larger district would have a slide like this for every single grade level to look at. But we wouldn't want to present this data if you only have maybe 2 students in the subpopulation. So all of these are over 10 students, but as you can see, some of these populations are very small, even district.
All right, so you've already removed any groupings that would have been too small to be meaningful.
It's not that it would be removed, it's just we're looking at it as everyone all in one pot versus the smaller pots per grade level, and that's how we present it to get away from identifying any specific students.
And what is the percentage standard deviation that we can expect would be statistically equivalent? Something like, 80% to 82% would be insignificant. I'm just curious if you, what you consider equivalent.
A standard deviation away
From point to point, that are we looking at, we can say that 79% is equivalent to 81%. We wouldn't consider that a significant change. I'm just curious if based on all of this data, we've got some idea of what the normal variation we might expect.
Are you from group to group?
From group to group, as we're looking year to year, that we might say if it's within 5%, we don't consider it significant. If it's within, but if it's outside that, then yes, we are seeing significant change.
I don't know if there's an actual number that is standardly used, but when I'm looking at this information, if it's fluctuating around 2 to 3%, I would consider that to be a cohort issue. And then that doesn't really end the conversation there. Then you have to kind of follow the cohort. You look backwards, you look forwards to see if this is the way they typically behave, which is where something like this would come into effect. So the 7th grade into 8th grade, I knew that grade level had an improvement from the year before, but they still weren't moving up in an upward trend. So then I looked at the year before's information to see, is this any better than it was last year or not? So that couple of percentage point number is kind of what leads you to investigate a little further. I mean, to me, anything 5 or above is like really, really significant. And at 2 to 3%, that's something to keep an eye on. If it's in the upward trend, then it's a good thing to keep an eye on. And if it's in the backward trend, not necessarily cause for concern yet, but definitely something to watch for. And then anything within about like 10% is like kind of in range with you know, the previous score. Anything else? Okay, so then that's the end of the NJSLA data, but we have multiple other district assessments that we use. The NJSLA is just one test on one day, so we have these other standardized tests or district assessments that we use to kind of layer on top of the NJSLA to see if they can give us any more information about our student progress. The one thing to remember when you're comparing this particular test to what you just heard about the NJSLA is that this is only a reading test. NJSLA also includes writing, so you're not going to, although you can find a pretty decent correlation if you have one grade level that's doing particularly well here but didn't do as well on NJSLA, that may be related to the fact that this doesn't include writing. So these are our growth scores. So the iReady diagnostic has a really nice feature of showing us how much the students grow, which the NJSLA does not. A student could not pass the NJSLA but have made years worth of growth between one grade level and the next, but you won't see it there. You'll be able to see it someplace like the iReady diagnostic that provides a growth score. Now in this particular chart, you want to be in that upper right-hand quadrant, which is a high performance, high growth area. So not only are they performing well on grade level, they're also showing a lot of growth from one year to another. So all of our grade levels in this particular assessment are in the high performance, high growth quadrant, except for 8th grade. Now, I'm not particularly concerned about 8th grade because at the mid-year point, they were way up by 7th and 6th grade. So when I talked to the teachers, they attributed this to 8th graders moving on to the high school. They were not particularly focused. They felt at this assessment, they had just taken the NJSLA, they had just taken other district assessments, and there was a little bit of assessment fatigue. Normally this would be cause for concern because they're hanging out there all by themselves, but because mid-year they were fine and this is an anomaly, we'll keep an eye on this group, but it's not appearing to have the same problem as we go into this year's assessment. Now, this is our growth as a district K to 8. So iReady was just, NJSLA was just grades 3 through 8. This includes kindergarten through 2nd grade. Now, the bar on the left-hand side is your growth score. In order to make a year's worth of growth, you want to be at 100% by the end of the year. At the end of the year, we were at 155%, which is about a year and a half's worth of growth. Now, this isn't an average, it's a median. So what the system will do is take every score in the entire district, they order them from the highest to the lowest, and they find that middle number. And the reason they do a median and not an average is because that stops all of the swing that comes from a very low score or a very high score, and it's a little more accurate than an average. So our median is 155. That's 5% better than last year. So our students are not only, for the most part, making a full year's worth of growth, they're also closing gaps. That's that extra 55% is students that were not on grade level getting closer to on grade level. And for a student that's like in the intervention program, this is exactly the number you want to see for them. So this is a median, which means we have students that are more along the lines of 100% growth. We also have students that are making 300% growth. This is our median, which is reflected in the current placement distribution, which is how the students scored on the test. So the dark green is students mid or above grade level, the lighter green is early on grade level, and then the yellow is 1 grade level below. There's red that's 2 grade levels below, and the striped red, which is 3 grade levels below. Those numbers in the parentheses you see on the bottom is where we started in September. So in September, we had 26% mid or on grade level. We ended the year with 58% mid or on grade level. So we have a 78% proficiency where students are within the grade level band. And the numbers in the yellow, red, and striped areas are reduced about by 50% or more as the year goes on. And those are the trends you want to see, the green growing and the yellow and red shrinking. These are the scores if you separate them by grade level. So kindergarten had a 91% proficiency, first grade had an 87% proficiency, and so on. So for the most part, on average, most grade levels were scoring around that 80% close to it mark, with a few exceptions. Yes.
So in this case, is grade 8 all grade 8 students, regardless of where they fit in honors or advanced math or anything?
Yes, it's not separated.
Okay.
These are, every student in the grade level took this assessment. We've looked at different timing for it. It's really hard for the kids to be taking it in June, but it's a benchmark assessment. It has a certain time frame that has to be given. You can only give it 3 times a year, and there's a certain gap of instructional time that has to happen between the first one and the second one, and the second one and the third one. If you give it too early, it's not accurate. If you give it too late, it's not accurate either. So we're bound by those timelines, and sometimes it does interfere with first grade, and like they've got NNAT testing. 8th grade has benchmarks. Right, this year we're going to have all of the extra assessments to pilot test questions. So there can be at some point some test taking fatigue. Not to mention it is June, and depending on when the teachers give it, they may have had a field trip. But for the most part, the students are showing really good growth here. So despite it being a little tougher to do it at the end of the year, we are seeing growth from the first one to the second, and the second to the third, just as we should.
I know you mentioned that 8th grade, your hypothesis was that there was testing fatigue, but didn't all the other grades also take the tests at the same time? Is there another hypothesis? Because the testing fatigue is difficult to accept, especially with such a low score here.
It is. The rest of the grade levels were at the same point they were last year. 8th grade is the only one that dropped. When I talked to the teachers, they said that they were watching the students take it, and they just weren't taking it seriously. That we did even reset it for certain students, because it's got a flagging process where it'll flag them with a yellow flag or a red flag if they've rushed. There was a very high number of rushing through that particular grade level on this particular test. We're also trying to give it in June. And if you have an 8th grade student, there's a lot of really special events in June. I'm not entirely certain how focused they were. And the teachers did ask me if we could change it to maybe earlier in May, but then it runs into NJSLA testing, and we're running into the boundaries of the timeline for the benchmarking. This generally hasn't happened in the past, so we'll keep an eye on it this year with the testing windows, with the special events, and see if we can find a different, like if we can maneuver the time a little bit more to see if that will work better. But since they did not have this problem 3 months before, it's unlikely that they went from up by the 6th and 7th at the very top of the chart all the way down there after 3 months of instruction. And even where they are, it's high performance. They just haven't shown a lot of growth necessarily from the second diagnostic to the third, which wouldn't be in line with what the teachers were saying if they weren't giving the test their full attention.
Just to clarify, the 8th graders do take an additional day of testing for the NJSLA. I said the 8th graders, the 4th and 8th graders.
Fifth and
Additional days. Two additional days of testing for the science portion of NJSLA. So they do have that extra.
Yeah. That's helpful.
Yeah.
And I think we need to make sure that we're consistent as a board. This test either matters and we're going to take action, or it doesn't matter as much and we should stop giving it. I struggle with explaining away some of the data, and I fully recognize at the same time that there are extenuating circumstances that we need to consider. I get concerned when I see this score for the 8th graders and the 3rd graders, and what I'd like to hear more is the urgency of we recognize this is something we need to take seriously, we're going to put action in place. I just wanted to share that with you because I have some concern here.
I don't share your concerns right now. This is one data point over the 5 or 6 years that we've given this test that's looked like this. We've given this test for many, many years. We've tracked this data on our growth chart. We've never had this happen before. So I hesitate to put a lot of action plans in place when this particular data doesn't match the other data that we have, and it hasn't shown that way before. So in my mind, this is something for us to keep a close eye on and to monitor and talk to the teachers carefully, but not to make a whole lot of changes right now when we're in a moment that we may not have as much information we need to act. So it's not taking it seriously as much as making sure that we have what we need to not disrupt a program that's working by pulling out pieces that are helpful in an effort to fix something when we're not really pinpointing it yet. If it looked like this year after year, that would be a definite problem. So looking at our iReady scores now, this isn't seeming to be an issue with this incoming group. And it's the growth scores or the proficiency levels are looking like when we get our growth scores in the second diagnostic. That's when they come out, when you compare the first one to the second one, that this should not be an issue. Now, if it is, then we'll have to make some choices and we'll have to put together somewhat of an action plan, but one data point isn't necessarily where you want to make big sweeping changes yet. It's just more of an investigation.
Just to follow up with that, so it's given every year in June to 8th graders. 8th graders would have the same distractions every year.
Mhm.
So what made this group of 8th graders different than the previous year, than the previous year, than the previous years? Could be something else besides they're distracted in June, because they've taken it, all cohorts take it in June with the same distractions going to high school.
They do, but they don't necessarily take it at the same time. Now, we've tried a couple of different testing procedures. We've tried shutting down the building with like an early dismissal or a delayed opening schedule where they take it all at once. We tried this past year of the teachers kind of giving it more on their own, the way they do in the elementary school, where they're giving it class by class, and we're just informing the parents that it's going to be happening at some point this week. Now, that may or may not have been helpful. So we want to look at how that's working. The teachers like to give it that way because they can work around their classroom schedule. So like for an 8th grade teacher, if they've got a kickball game or some sort of dance, then they can try and avoid those days. They could have been giving it on the same time that they had other tests and other grade levels, other subject areas. So those are all things that we're investigating, because you're right, it's not something that happened before, so it requires a little more digging before we make any changes.
I have a similar question, but what is the testing day like for this test, this benchmark test? Is it an all-day test? Is it like an hour compared to what they're doing in the NJSLA? What is
It
the
can
day
take some students longer than others. So some students will be done in a period, some students are working for like 3 periods later. It's untimed, so they get as long as they like. Most students will finish it in about 2 periods, but this was the first year that we had that double block and then single block the next day. So that may have impacted some of them badly because they wouldn't be able to have finished it on the second day. Normally you'd have 2 periods, then you would have another 2 periods, which is how we've given it in the past, where they've had like a day where everybody kind of takes it all at once. So now they would have, maybe this is extending into like 4 days for them to finish it, and that can feel really long. Now, it didn't impact 6th and 7th grade that way, but if they had to stop in between because they had a special event, because there was some disruption in their schedule, that may have caused a problem where we didn't have one before. So those are all things that we're looking into, and we do have a consistent teaching staff in the classroom in 8th grade now. How you present this test matters a lot too. How important the teacher makes it seem, how they prep them can be very different from classroom to classroom and teacher to teacher. And with all of the long-term subs in there, if we had a group of students that the long-term sub didn't present this in a way that made students feel like there was some urgency to do their best, that also could have impacted the scores. But now we're talking about like a lot of different variables, and we can't pull them out and change them all at once because then we'll figure out what it is that went wrong. So we're in the process of kind of testing one at a time as we go through tests this year to see which ones may have an impact and which ones may not. But again, this is one data point over the year and one data point over many years of getting this test. It's not cause for concern just yet. It's just something that we want to watch to make sure that it doesn't become an ongoing problem.
Do we have access to this class as they're now taking their ninth grade standardized test to that data? Are we allowed to get that back?
We can request it. What we'll get is basically their, we can get like their grades and how they're performing each of their classes over at high school.
Where do you want to see?
I'm just thinking another data point after this to see,
After this,
like,
okay.
was there special cause that interfered with their test taking? Did they all just go screw it, we're done? Or, and did it bounce back? Like, can we get that data fairly quickly?
I don't know how quickly, but I can talk to the high school and find out the data. They may have, we've shared in ed tech in the past, we've shared PSAT data and where our students have performed on the PSAT. I don't know if it's required in ninth grade that they take it anymore, but I think it is. And we might be able to get that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they just took a
They may have.
standardized test last week.
Yeah. I'll mention, just because I want to make sure that we address Michelle's question. I agree with everything Stacy has said, and I want to let you know that behind the scenes, the data is used in a very different way than presenting it to the Board of Education. So just know that in the fall, in the summer, we're looking at the data in the fall. Myself, Sarah, and Stacy are meeting with all of the building principals to review all of the data that we have, not only NJSLA, but iReady data. You'll hear from all the principals tonight. Each building has a focus area, something that they're going to look at over the course of the year. Beyond that, every administrator develops their own quantitative goal based off of data points, whether it's iReady data or NJSLA data. The data is used for tangible action steps and meaningful growth in terms of percentage growth and meaningful achievement for students. And then the last thing I'll say is we started talking in March of last year when we get the mid-year iReady data. We have a meeting together as a leadership team and we talk about what is the beginning of the year data and the mid-year data telling us, and can we do short-term interventions between now and the end of the school year to make sure students are achieving where they need to go. So it may feel as if I think our job tonight is to present to you the data and give you some of our hypotheses. I want you to know that among the administrative team and then the leadership team with the teachers are looking at the data to really drive instruction. And we're not giving you some of the details because specific students may be involved in some of the action plans that are happening, or a subpopulation of students, or students that qualify for intervention programs. So I want you to know that we use the data in meaningful ways. And every administrator in the room has a goal that's tied to some piece of the data to move forward for the rest of the year as well. I don't know if that's helpful. I don't want to give you the impression
That is helpful, I appreciate
I'm
adding
a
to
little
this discussion.
nervous when you say
Thank
either we use it or we don't, and we should just not be giving it. If we don't, I'm like, no, we use it. Like this is meaningful
I
work for the
appreciate
teachers
that,
and for the
because
principals.
when we're presenting information and then we're explaining why it may not matter, one could, without having that context, one might perceive that we're dismissing it, and what I'm hearing you say, that's not the case,
No.
which is helpful, so thank you.
I think that the administrators in the room will roll their eyes at how much I ask them to look at the data and create meaningful action steps to make sure we're addressing student needs. Yeah, right? Yeah, say their own, yes.
So that's the end of the iReady data, which is focused on reading. Do you have any more questions before we move on to writing benchmarks? Okay. So the writing benchmarks, we have 3 a year. Every grade level takes them. They're in the genres of narrative, informational, and opinion writing. In general, narrative usually comes first. It's the easiest of the 3 writing benchmarks to respond to because it's fiction writing and it's more of a creative writing. These scores are generally in line with where they were last year. They usually start out a little bit lower in the beginning of the year and then they climb as the year goes on. And the reason that happens is because there are many different skills in writing that are applicable from one genre to another. So they'll learn things in this narrative unit that they're going to apply into informational, and then they'll learn more and they'll apply it into opinion and argument writing. So these scores are pretty typical for us except for 3rd grade. The third grade lines up with the performance on the NJSLA data. So if you remember, their scores were pretty decent in the the reading for iReady, and then this writing piece, when you combine them together, that would give you a similar result to what they got in the NJSLA. So all of our district assessments are lining up with the NJSLA assessments. Then students take generally informational writing next. You can see that these scores have climbed from one assessment to another, which is exactly what we're hoping to see because the students are applying the things that they've learned from one genre into another. Informational writing is really important as an adult. This is the type of writing that you do for the most part. So we like to see how well they're doing here and how the scores typically climb to the point where they're really well performing by the time they leave us and move to high school. Now the last assessment for writing is the opinion or argument writing benchmark. Now these scores generally stay in the same range as informational writing, and the reason that is because this is much more difficult in my opinion than the informational writing. It's taking an informational writing piece, now you have to have a claim, now you have to have evidence, you have to rank your evidence, you're looking for strength of evidence, and those can be very tricky. And it transitions really from like third into fourth grade where you're going from that opinion writing to more of an argument where you have to have claims and counterclaims, and those can be pretty technical. So the fact that the scores stay about the same means that the students are applying what they know about writing in general, and then they're starting to master this particular genre of writing. And then as they go through grade levels, they're a little higher in kindergarten and first grade because you're looking at an opinion, and you can have any kind of opinion that you want. But when you're really doing argument, you have to have a claim and you have to back up your claim well. So then that's where they start to kind of change a little bit, and then you'll see the upward trend as they get into 8th grade. So we're sending them off to the high school prepared to do all three genres of writing. Do you have any questions about the writing benchmarks? This is something that we're working on. The middle school has all new writing benchmarks this year. We work with the teachers. We have put them in a Linkit platform so that now, before they kind of would get lost from one year to the other, they were attached to the student, not necessarily attached to the teacher or class. Now they're going to be for the middle school in Linkit. So we'll be able to look back at them at any time, which will be super helpful for any students that need special services or any students that we need to look back over time to see if their educational journey is moving in the right direction or not. So we're excited to put those in place there, and then we're looking to see how we can move that down to the other grade levels. So that is the end of the literacy assessments. Do you have any questions before I hand you over to Sarah?
Just a quick one about how these are rated. It seems like it would be a subjective reading by experts.
Writing can be very, very subjective. It's very difficult to score them. The best that you can do is make sure you have a really strong rubric. And we've put some things in place that we're starting at the middle school to ensure like some inter-reader reliability. So what's really exciting about Linkit is that you can make the writing pieces anonymous. So when the teachers score them, they don't necessarily, it's got a number, it doesn't have a name, so they don't really know who in their class is scoring. And they have an option that they can trade classes and score with another teacher should they choose. Now the elementary levels, you can trade between classes. It's really best not to score your own class because you have your own biases and your own understanding of the students. And you want to make sure that you're scoring exactly what's in front of you, not what necessarily you know they can do previously. We have really specific rubrics so that you really have to mark down what the students have done, and it gives you really specific things to look for. A general rubric can leave a room for a lot of subjectivity.
And is it rated by more than one person?
Generally not, just because there's an overwhelming amount of writing work for the teachers to score, so having to score them twice can be difficult, although some teachers do score them with the coaches, especially when they're new or when they're trying something different. The coach will score and the teacher will score, and they'll do it that way so that they can learn the process. And then periodically, we'll talk about the scoring process, adjust the benchmarks, do some sample scoring with like a student sample Our program comes with a lot of student samples with it, so we could do a scoring on even a writing piece that didn't belong to any students, just to see how we all scored them.
Are these writing assessments only for gen ed students?
No, the whole district takes them, special ed included, unless they're in something like an LLD class or like a self-contained, then they would not take this. If they are taking an alternate assessment to the NJSLA, then I would say they wouldn't take things like our running records or iReady or the writing benchmarks, but students in a resource group would. Anything else? All right, so then the math assessments are next.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sarah Pouch, the Math Science Technology Supervisor, and I'll be walking you through our scores for district and state assessments, beginning with NJSLA, grades 3 through 8. We had a very nice performance this year with the majority of our grade levels showing improvement. As we look at starting at 3rd grade, as Dr. Brown had mentioned, we're looking at a 5 performance levels, starting with the highest being exceeding in the darkest color and the not yet meeting expectations in the lightest color. Here for 3rd grade, you can see that we are above the state performance with 61%. And this is a slight decrease of 4% compared to last year's 3rd graders, and we'll see that in our longitudinal studies as well. Looking at 4th grade, we are at 29% higher than the state average, and this is a 13% increase from where 4th graders were performing last year, whereas the state only showed a 3% increase. So that was a nice jump to see with our 4th graders meeting or exceeding expectations at 76%. Continuing to 5th grade, we have our 5th grade students meeting or exceeding at 71%, which well outperforms the state average of 44% meeting or exceeding. In 6th grade, we have 51% of students meeting or exceeding, which is above the state average, and this is only a 2% decrease in how 6th grade typically performs from year to year. Looking at 7th grade, this is where we don't have our entire population of students all taking the same test. Here we also have 51% of students meeting or exceeding expectations compared to 39% with the state. This is a 14% increase from last year when the state only showed a 2% increase in performance. Roughly our top 10% of students are removed from this population and take Algebra 1. When we look at all of our 7th graders as a whole, regardless of what test they took, we had a 54% meeting or exceeding rate. Looking at 8th grade, we have a increase of 17%, or excuse me, yes, an increase of 17%, so that we have 38% of students meeting or exceeding compared to 21% with the state. The state average showed no improvement, while we showed, the district showed a 17% improvement compared to the year before. You can also see that there's only 80 students taking this assessment, because in 8th grade we have students not only removed for Algebra 1, but for Algebra 2 as well. When we look at 8th grade as a whole, regardless of what test they took, the passing rate for the grade level was 53%. So we have a total of 148 8th graders, and only 80 of them sat for this assessment. The rest were in the high school level assessments for Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. Looking at Algebra 1, you can see we have a 91% meeting or exceeding the expectations, and that was 59 of our students took that assessment. This is actually a slight decrease for our district. We were 3% higher last year, but the state also had a decrease of 3%. So it's looking like that was a typical thing across the board. This is also to keep in mind that our Algebra 1 students are a combination of our 7th grade honors students as well as our 8th grade advanced math students. And these students are being compared to any students who took Algebra 1, including high school. So when we're looking at our 91 compared to the 38% of meeting and exceeding the state, that's really outstanding because the majority of those students would be high school students taking that assessment. And then in Algebra 2, we were, of course, thrilled to see 100% in meeting or exceeding, and that was our students who would be the honors 8th grade students who took Algebra 2, compared to 73% of the state who took Algebra 2, regardless of what grade level they were in. Can I provide any clarification for any of the grade levels?
Yeah, can you comment on the 8th grade mathematics with less than half of the students meeting and exceeding expectations? I'm just trying to understand what the hypothesis might be there, and is there any relation to that in the iReady maths that we were talking about?
I do have additional information for 8th grade that it does paint a slightly different picture. And some of it is looking at 8th grade as a whole, whether it's 8th grade Algebra 1 or Algebra 2. And then we also have our cumulative assessments, which are paper and pencil assessment, that does show, it paints a different picture for our 8th graders. And it's also, it provides a little bit, it's more consistent with what we see for marking period grades, as well as the information we're provided with from the high school that shows how are they performing in their 9th grade math class, which shows they are being successful. Not 38% of them are being successful, but a majority of students are being successful at the high school. So circle back, if some of the other data points don't clarify that for you. Next, we'll also take a look at our longitudinal studies where we can see growth over time. Looking at this first slide, we have by grade level, the same grade level but different students from year to year so that we can see trends, what's typical for a grade level. With 3rd grade, we are looking into what is happening at 3rd grade because that's one of the only grade levels where we see a consistent step down. And we want to make sure that we're addressing that and that the teachers have the materials they need, as well as covering the correct content so that we can see improvement there. Looking at 4th grade, you can see our last year's 4th graders outperformed what's been typical for the grade level, as well as 5th grade. They outperformed what's been typical for that grade level. Looking at 6th grade, there's also steps down that they're considerably smaller than, it's only 1 or 2%. But again, we want to make sure that we keep an eye on that and that that grade levels are performing consistently. We had a very nice jump in 7th grade where students have outperformed what we typically see, as well as 8th grade. We had a very nice increase where 8th grade students are outperformed. Last year's 8th grade students outperformed what we have seen for year over year. Algebra 1 has remained very consistent over the most recent years, and Algebra 2 had a great jump up to that 100%. However, the difference in that 20% was the difference in 5 students. So when we have a smaller group, every student counts a little more significantly. And as we look at our district as a whole, all of the grade levels together, we can see that we've had a nice improvement compared to previous years.
Can I just ask a question? If you go back to that other slide, if you look across all of the years, there's a clear downward trend as the students are advancing from one grade to the next. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on what's causing that, and is that an area of focus for the district over time?
I believe it's mostly tied to the content and the mathematical content becoming much more abstract. In 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, we're looking at addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, but largely of whole numbers. In 5th grade, we start to add in the fractions and the decimals. As we move to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, the concepts become much more abstract. We add in variables, there's equations, and solving equations, which again, it's far less concrete mathematics and much more abstract. And it's the content is extremely more sophisticated than it is in the lower grades. We would certainly want to continue to see this upward trend.
So I have a question for that. If we were to look at other districts, we would see that same trend. They enter
Yes.
high and
Yes.
And then
Definitely looking at other districts, third, fourth, and fifth grade tend to outperform the sixth, seventh, and eighth graders in general.
A question, I know last year it was 21% for eighth grade math, now it's at 38, so that's a big improvement. And you guys had implemented some steps, maybe you could explain what those steps were that caused you?
Absolutely. Mr. Charlton, I'm sure will address that a little bit as well. The increased instructional time at the middle school, I believe, is a major factor of those students having a little bit more time where they might have been on the cusp of grasping one of those abstract concepts, and now with the additional time, they were able to retain it and apply it in a different way. We also worked with the seventh and eighth grade teachers looking at the evidence statements where the state provides us specific information on what kind of questions were asked and whether our district performed, whether we outperformed the state or performed below the state. And any of the standards where we performed below the state, we worked with our middle school math coach as well as during our math departments and looked at how can we address those? What can we do so that we know that those seventh graders struggled in these skills, they're now moving into eighth grade. How do we help them with those prerequisite skills so that they can continue to move on? And we found that incorporating kind of more of a spiral review for the students so that we could keep moving instruction forward, but we kept kind of going back to some of those more difficult concepts so that September wasn't the last time they saw it, so that they saw it a little more recently moving into the test, and it helped prepare them for the units that were coming at the end of the school year. So we found that providing those cumulative reviews very beneficial, as well as the additional time to build that in.
And I have a question about how many students from year to year are we pulling out of the regular math instruction and putting into Algebra 1 either in 7th or 8th grade?
So that remains fairly consistent. It does fluctuate from year to year because it's different groups of kids. Some years we have larger groups of students and others smaller. But if we look at when I look at the 8th grade numbers, we can see that 80 students took the on-grade level assessment, and that's out of 148 students total. So we're almost at a 50-50 split for on-grade level math compared to Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. So other hands, anybody else?
I just wanted to, I know that you mentioned the increase in instructional time, but I wanted to just circle back to let the board members know the reason for that was that negotiating the teacher contract, and that happened 3 years ago now, is that right? So it was negotiating terms to have more student contact time and less prep time for the teacher. So they gave up personal prep time to have more student time. And so I just want everyone to make sure that you're all aware of that and you know that. And so it's actually a huge thank you to our teachers for being willing and to do that for our district. And I mean, it's not just the only thing, but I see huge results in that. I mean, the data is speaking for itself. So last year was the first full year of instruction with the new changes to the schedule. And so that's what we're seeing there. So I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that.
I have one last comment. As it was mentioned that it goes down from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade as it gets more difficult. Have you looked at the same cohort of students? Is it the same 6th graders are struggling 7th?
That's
and
next
8th?
slide.
And are you actually, oh, it is next slide.
It is.
And how are you addressing that cohort? Okay.
So we'll take a look at that now. It is just from one year to the next, but we do look at this every year. So we do pile them up so that we can see as we go. And the first group is our the students who were third graders in the 23-24 school year all the way to the left. And then the darker bar is how did they perform as fourth graders in the 24-25 school year. And we can see that nice increase from the third graders, and then they improved their performance as they were fourth graders. Looking at the next group, we have how did our students who were the fourth graders perform as fifth graders, and we have another nice step up. We do see a step down for 5th to 6th grade. It's definitely something that has caught our attention. We want to make sure we focus on that. One of the things that jumps out right away that could be part of the variable is the change in building and going from the intermediate building to the middle school. It's a radical schedule change for students, not having a homeroom teacher that they stay with all day, switching every single period, learning to manage extracurriculars as well as academics. That could be a piece, but we're certainly looking at all aspects. When we look at our cohort of 6th to 7th grade, we see a nice step up there as well. The bar that reaches all the way to the top there, those are our honors 6th graders, and they never take the 7th or 8th grade test. They immediately move into the Algebra 1 test as honors students, 7th grade honors students. Because that's the trajectory that they're on, and if they're in an algebra class, they're required to take the algebra NJSLA. The next bar shows the improvement of the 7th to 8th grade. So we can see that not only was that improvement seen in the 38% increase for 8th graders passing, that clearly surpasses how they performed as 7th graders, which is really great to see. That they're closing some of those gaps, whereas only 14% of the same students who took on grade level 7 had meeting or exceeding, they were able to bring that up to 38%. The next graph shows 7th grade to Algebra 1, so those would be our advanced math students.
Thank you. My question is slightly different in that I have a certain number of students in 6th grade, they may not be meeting. Then when they go to 7th grade, they may not be meeting. Then 8th grade, they may not. So not the improvement for the ones that improve, but the cohort that continues not to meet. Just how are those being addressed?
Can you say that again,
Like,
please?
is it the same students that don't do well in 6th grade, then 7th grade, and then 8th grade? Not the ones that improve, but the ones that continually don't do well. What's the plan to address them?
Yes, so that's where we lean on the teachers to provide individualized instruction as well as small group instruction. In NJSLA, we may see that a student may have progressed from one performance level to another. This is where we find iReady data much more useful because it targets what are the students doing and what should their next steps be. So that the teachers can utilize that and look at and say, okay, maybe a student scored, for example, in iReady, if they scored in the yellow, and they score in the yellow every year. But that's when we can use the growth report and say, okay, they still scored in the yellow, but they continue to show growth from year to year. Because we may have a student who never makes it into the green, but looking at their growth report, we can see, okay, their color didn't change, but they're showing growth and they are closing that gap, and eventually they will make that jump. So it's the growth reports, I think, that the teachers get the most information because it's the students sitting in front of them at that moment. Whereas this information, there are the students that have left them, but we do go back and look and say, okay, so what does this look like for the students who are sitting in front of you now? But the iReady reports are much more in the moment.
For our 4th and 5th grade students, we offer advanced math, which is a grade or 2 above.
So advanced math starts in 6th grade?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And honors math.
Yes, the honors math does start earlier.
is a grade or 2 advanced. These students are taking the test with their peers at their grade level, even though it might be material we haven't seen for a year and a half.
That's one of the kind of sticking points for our advanced and honors classes. There are times where they're taking an assessment on material they had a year or a year and a half to 2 years ago. So and the goal is always to retain it, so we're hoping that they're going to do just as well, even though it was material that was presented significantly before they took the assessment on it. And that's why it's always interesting to look at that 6th grade one, because they go from taking grade level 6 to Algebra 1. They never take the 7th or 8th grade assessment. And the rest of the second to last, shows our honor students who were Algebra 1 as 7th graders and then Algebra 2 as 8th graders. And the final graph shows our district as a whole that we are on an upward trend. Can I provide any other information on our longitudinal studies? Next, we have our subpopulations. As Dr. Brown mentioned, we're required to report out by race, and we need to do that as a district so that we have something to report. If we had it by grade level, our end counts would be too low. We do see that for all of our subpopulations by race, regardless of their size, we're seeing an improvement across the board, that they're steadily moving up, which is nice to see. By gender, we can see that our male and female students are performing very well, also on an upward trend overall. And it's interesting to see that we do have almost a 50-50 split in our population. It is typical for males to outperform females in STEM areas at some of these grades, and here we're spot on, which is always great to see. We also have our proficiency by programs. We have our labeled as ELL, but our ML students, and that population fluctuates greatly. As we had said, as soon as a student is showing grade level success, they're removed from the program. So it's hard to keep, it's definitely a different population from year to year. We also have our free and reduced lunch, 504s, special ed, and gen ed, which are all have shown some improvements. That was it on subpopulations. Can I answer any questions there? All right. Next, we have our district cumulative assessments, and that was brought up. I think we'll answer some of the questions that was brought up before. So we do have students take cumulative assessments in grade levels at the mid-year and end of year. And what's different about these compared to NJSLA or the diagnostic is that this is a paper and pencil assessment. Both NJSLA and the diagnostic are digital assessments. One of the things that always comes to mind is when we see on those digital assessments that measurement was an issue, my immediate reaction is it's really hard to measure on a screen. To move that digital ruler and line it up exactly where the computer wants them to have that. And if students can do that with paper and pencil, then yes, they obviously can do it. Sometimes it's an inputting issue for the students on those digital assessments. So I do want to have a separate mathematical point that is not tied to a computer in any way. So the teachers worked over several years to design assessments that were not cumbersome or overbearing for the students to take so that it shouldn't impact instructional time too much, which is also why we split it into 2 assessments. When we did a final end of the year cumulative assessment, it was possibly 50 questions long and took 2 periods to implement, and it became too cumbersome for the teachers and the students, so we split it into 2 separate assessments and then usually look at them kind of averaged together. This is also administered by their classroom teacher, and again, I do think that the paper and pencil makes a very large difference because the students, if they read it, go not sure, they can't just click ahead to the next problem. They can certainly move on to the next problem, but they're far more likely to spend some more time on it. The 2 results that we have posted here, and it is broken down by grade level, and then when we get to the middle school, separated out by course. We can see what was the average score for those assessments, and then the second column shows that what percent of students got 80% or higher on that. So looking at our 8th grade assessment, those same 80 students that took at the grade level NJSLA, their average score was a 77, which is pretty solid. It's certainly within a passing range. And 54% of the students got 80 or higher. So that average, more than half of the students got higher than that 77% average. And I think that's much more indicative of their daily performance than the isolated assessments and the paper and pencil piece. You can see that the Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 students, while they had phenomenal scores on NJSLA, their classroom teachers have higher standards set for them than what the state assessments are putting, where the average scores were still great, but we didn't have 100% of the students scoring in the you know, in a 80% or higher, whereas our NJSLA scores were at a nice 100%. So it gives a different perspective about how the different assessments, how we need all of this information and not just one piece. Does this answer partly what you were asking, or no?
I think that math is something to keep an eye on,
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes,
but it's helpful context, so thank you.
you got it, no problem. Yes.
Third grade doesn't get the cumulative.
Second and third grade do, and it was, I hadn't included it in years past, but I have that, I can certainly provide it. And it is something that I'm looking at to compare to for the NJSLA, whereas where we are seeing some discrepancies, it's another point to go past. So I can definitely provide that information. We did try kindergarten and first grade for a couple of years, it was just not. It didn't provide us with enough information to justify an assessment of that sort for students that age. We do use second grade because that's when we do begin to identify for the honors math class, and we want to have that piece there. But I just started with fourth grade, but I'll certainly provide the third grade information. iReady as our district benchmark and universal screener. We have our end of the year diagnostic growth, and we can see that all grades, including 8th grade, were in that high performance, high growth quadrant. This is the first time I haven't had an outlier, or we've always been in the high performance. We didn't always make that high growth, so I was really pleased to see that every grade level made high performance, high growth. Looking at those results, we have our typical growth as a district, and again, we're looking to achieve 100%, meaning students will have made their grade level expectation for that year at 131%. That means we have students closing gaps, which we are always pleased to see. We have 77% performing in the green, which would be our on grade level expectation, and that's a significant increase from the 39% at the beginning of the year. We are looking to keep that trend of increasing the green as well as shrinking the yellow and the red, and especially looking at the students who, what we might call on the cusp, where they could tip one way or the other. How can we identify that and provide them with the supports they need to push them over into the grade level expectations? And then we have that breakdown for iReady by grade level, and we can see that we have nice secure scores across the grade level. And again, these are all students in the grade level, regardless of at the middle school what course they're sitting in. So when we look at 8th grade, that includes our Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 students. Can I answer any questions regarding the district assessments? That brings us to science. NJSLA also has science assessments for 5th and 8th grade only. So here they do change the performance levels. It's not out of 5, we are looking out of 4. And we, what is considered passing or meeting expectations are the students who are advanced proficient and proficient. Looking at the state, we have a 30% state passing rate, whereas our 5th graders are at a 56% passing rate. Both the state and the district showed about a 4% improvement in their scores. When we look at 8th grade science, we can see that we have a 19% passing rate for the state and a 32% passing rate for the district. That's an increase of 8% compared to last year for our 8th graders, and it's higher than the state by 13%. The state showed no improvement in their performance from one year to the next. We can also look at these achievements as growth over time, and we can see that 5th grade has stayed very consistent at across the board with a slight upward trend. 8th grade bounces around a little bit, but we did have a nice performance this year. It's something that I would like to certainly keep track of, especially with the change in primary resources and using a different program that is more aligned to state standards. I would hope to continue to see this increase for 8th grade. In science, we also look at our breakdown by race, but remember this is just 5th and 8th grade averaged together, so we're looking at an even smaller number. So we will see wider swings in some of those scores. The majority of students, when we look at proficiency by race, have shown an upward trend. And the percentages of what percentage of our students make up that population are listed underneath. Again, looking at gender, we have our male-female split, which is not quite at the 50-50 mark as it is when we look at the rest of the district, because again, we're looking at just 5th and just 8th grade. So we have a slightly higher female population, but again, you can see that the males and females are performing equally across the board, which is always nice to see. We do look at proficiency by program. That it is possible that we had 0 ML students in 5th or 8th grade at some point in previous years, but we do have a percentage of students in our ML program. Free and reduced lunch has remained consistent. 504 had a slight dip of 4%, and our general ed students had an increase of 6%. That is everything for science. Can I provide any more information in science?
Just want to let the board know that the Ed Tech Committee will continue to look at this data. Ms. Pouch and Dr. Brown go through surrounding districts and similar size districts as ours and pull reports how we're doing compared to students in those other districts. And I think sometimes when you're looking at these percentages, Michelle, and it's like 50%, we're right on par or better than a lot of the surrounding districts and similar size districts. So just something that will be coming, I don't know, I forget when we do that, it's maybe like January meeting is usually when we have that information, so just more to come on that.
We've started poking around other district websites to see if they've done this presentation yet. So.
From here, I'll talk briefly about some of the district interventions to address some of the concerns as well as continue with the things that are working. So at a district level, we continue to look at ELA curricular revisions across the board. Each building does have a designated intervention time, so that allows us to provide the small group instruction or additional support that students might need. We do analyze quite heavily what's referred to as the evidence statements, and that's where we can take a look at specific standards and see if the state outperformed us on that, and we look for trends to see if that's a standard that we consistently year after year fall below the state on, then that's program and instruction that we want to be able to circle back and look at. If we're seeing the same skill year after year, that's something that we can definitely begin to address. We also make sure that the grade levels receive that information for the students. Teachers receive that information to see how their students did that they had just taught, and then we are also able to provide that information to the next year's teacher so that these are the students who are sitting in front of you right now, and these may be their strengths or areas of concern. We do, as Dr. Hart mentioned, base our administrative goals on this data that we constantly look back to. We make sure that we offer professional development in any of the areas to target for areas of concern. We're very fortunate to have our wonderful math and literacy coaches, which certainly benefit the teachers in many ways. We continue to utilize iReady, the training from the company, to make sure teachers understand how to use those reports and what information that they can provide. We do have a new handwriting program for kindergarten and first grade this year. As Dr. Brown mentioned, they're revising the writing benchmarks in 6-8. We have updated primary resources for 6-8 as well as mathematics as well as 4-8 science to help address student achievement. And both Hollenbrook and RMS have an AM homework room to provide students with support as well as a PM homework room at RMS. And we're also reviewing our MTSS process to be reviewed for a multi-tiered support services. Next, we have Mrs. Burns presenting our information for DLM. Have a great night.
Thank you.
All right, so here is, so DLM is our alternative assessment for students with cognitive disabilities. So every year they have to go through a participation criteria that's sent from the Department of Ed. And our child study team meetings at the annual reviews for our children, review over the criteria to see if the child meets criteria annually. So this is a sample report that is sent home to the students that participate in the DLM during the 24-25 school year. 15 out of our 921 students, so that's our grades 3 through 8. This is also inclusive of our out-of-district students participated in the DLM assessment. So that is roughly about 2% of our district population taking the alternative assessment. So here are our district-wide results. They don't break it by grade, only because we only have 15 students that take it in totality. So they just provide us with the assessment results from 24 to 25 comparatively, and then in the subject areas of ELA, math, and science. Again, science is only assessed at the 5th and the 8th grade level. So you can see the line of proficiency, and just to keep in mind, although you see growth from one year to another, the other thing to keep in mind that one student can participate in this one year, and then the next year they're not participating in the DLM, and they might participate in the NJSLA. So you really can't compare student to student. However, our teachers do receive the student data that they look at the data individually, and then they determine whether or not the child is going to participate in the following year if they've met target. So when we go back to the slide here, I'm instructing my CST team to look at this specific data, and if the children are meeting target, we're recommending for the students to take the NJSLA that following year. Students are assessed on the essential elements, so they're not assessed on the state standards, they're assessed on the alternative standards titled the essential elements. Some action steps just to consider, again, when we talk about the students' progress in the DLM, they're talking about that at their annual reviews, and as a team, inclusive of the parents, they're determining whether or not the child's going to participate for the following year in the DLM. Data dives are housed with our teachers, our CST, and again, programs are adjusted based upon what data is presented. It is different from the NJSLA because it's an alternative assessment. It's an adaptive assessment, so teachers go in the very beginning and they identify the skill level that the students are at, and based upon the skill level, that's where the students enter the DLM assessment. That's all I have. Any questions related to the DLM? All right. So building areas of focus, Dr. Higgins.
Excuse me, if the board would allow us, before you guys jump on to the next session, we're a small group of people who have a very simple suggestion or request. I know it's getting late, and it would hardly take 2 minutes if you guys would allow us. 2 minutes.
So what we're going to do, we had talked about this earlier, after this report, which is almost done, we're going to make the next public comments for on and off the agenda. So this way you don't have to wait till another half hour to go. So we'll have public comments for anything on and off the agenda very shortly. So we're just going to finish up this presentation, and then you'll be able to make your comments in a relatively short time.
Appreciate it. Thanks so
No
much.
problem.
So, hello. I'm Kristen Higgins, I'm the principal of Fruitage School, and I'm here to present the White House data. Dr. DeRosa apologizes, she is homesick today. She's actually very ill. I think I may have given it to her, so I apologize. So we're gonna start with looking at the area of focus from last year. So this year, right, we're very busy looking at what happened last year. And so we spent last year looking at the data from the year before and trying to make tweaks and, focusing efforts to see if we can pull scores up. So for the 24-25 school year, we started with saying that there was a challenge area in the operations and algebraic thinking and math, and mastering the concept of inverse operations with multiplication and division. And that was something that we saw between the two schools. And the teachers focused on the goal daily with the support and resources from the math coach as well as our iReady program. And White House performed at or above the state level in all areas of operations and algebraic thinking. And this is a celebration because those questions do tend to be categorized as more difficult. Also of note within the math program, which is really a neat experience, is 2 first grade teachers, along with another district teacher and the math coach, were invited to become iReady insiders. And they had an opportunity that allowed them to connect and collaborate with other teachers across New Jersey on iReady. It's really neat. In terms of English language arts from the year before, our challenge area was reading informational text. That's synthesis and comparing one text to another text. We have found that to be very difficult for 3rd graders. And the good news is White House performed above the state level in all complex areas of reading involving informational text. So that's really great. Now this year, the areas of focus and action steps for 25-26. So White House reviewed the data with principal, the coaches, and the team. And they said they have some more growth areas to concentrate on this year as compared to last year. And so they're going to enhance action steps to address areas of growth, curricular feedback, increased focus on specialized populations, and more utilization of instructional coaches and classroom visits for new 3rd grade teachers. Also including vertical articulation to identify gaps from grade to grade. 3rd grade at White House, there's actually quite a number of new teachers. I think 4 of the 5 teachers are new to the grade level. So they're going to have a big focus on looking at preparing for the state test. They're also going to be focused on diving deeper into data analysis at their faculty meetings and CPTs and engaging the coaches in more data conversations. In terms of English and language arts, they said their strength was understanding content and explaining the text with evidence when constructing a response. A challenge area is reading informational text. So that's continue synthesizing by comparing multiple texts, so that comparing the 2 texts again, it keeps coming up, it's a bugaboo. Describing nonfiction text relationships with historical events or scientific concepts in terms of time, sequence, and cause and effect. So that nonfiction reading with comparisons is something that they're going to be looking at. In mathematics, their strength was understanding and comparing fractions. So that's great because that's a very hard concept for 3rd graders. A challenge area is the modeling and reasoning and decomposing word problems and solving using models. So they're going to continue focusing on that and using their CPT time and looking at their iReady data to make sure that these areas are closed up and shored up. Okay. 3 grades. So last year, we're looking at our language arts data, and actually last year to this year's data that we were looking at are actually very, very similar. And we were looking at research-based questions and providing comparison and contrasting of key details presented in 2 texts of the same topic. So that's the same 2 texts, bugaboo. And we scored significantly above the state level in that area. So the year before, we were below the state, and last year when we took the test, we scored significantly above the state. So that focus really did pay off and did a wonderful job. Math, our goal was working on division within 100 using word problems. So it's multiplication and division with using factors less than 10 and creating models for the word problem. Kids had a really difficult time with that across the board on our reports the year before, we were below the state level. This year, we were 20 points higher than the state level. So they really made a big adjustment and a focus, and it was one of those recurring themes throughout the year. Because it is a skill that started early in the year, so we're thinking maybe by the time the test came, they kind of lost some of their skill with that. So we just kept bringing it back to them, and they did a really nice job. Something else, a great celebration at Three Bridges, is that we are nationally recognized for being an iReady Super Stretch school. So 60% of the students across from K to 3 reach their stretch growth. So we know that we want to reach our typical growth. Then that stretch growth is like if you're below grade level, if you hit your stretch growth for 2 years, you will catch up. And if you're already at grade level, that's great to get the stretch growth. And 60% of our students did that. We'd like to see more, but that's, I say that's a really good achievement. So we're very proud of our teachers. Our third grade team and all the way K to 3, and our intervention teachers and the coaches are working really hard on focusing in these areas. So now we say, well, we looked at the test. What are we going to do this year? So our areas of focus for this year is that we looked at language arts, and actually our scores were very, very similar. I'm sorry. Our scores are very, very similar to the year before. We were above the state in all levels, except there were 2 where they only tested 24 students. Now, when you're talking about percent of people passing, when you're only doing 24, out of 70 some, right? That's doesn't really give you a good number, so we don't know if that's really great data to use. But that was something based on description of characters and morals of lessons, so that kind of literature-based reading. But when we were looking at the writing piece, and typically Three Bridges does very well with the writing, we achieved at the state level on literary analysis. So once again, that's actually using 2 texts to form a literary essay. Now, if you think about when you wrote literary essays in high school, we're asking 3rd graders to do that. We scored just at the state level, and we want to do better than that, so that's going to be our area of focus for this year. For math, we scored above the state average in all areas, which is quite a bit significantly different than the year before, where we had several areas that were below. The one area that we were below was working with fractions on a number line, with using whole numbers or numbers greater than 1 as a fraction. So that one area was below the state level. We will work on that, but we're also going to continue doing what we did to pull up the scores from the year before. And that's what I have. Do you have any questions? I'd like to introduce Dr. Moss from HBS.
Good evening, Dr. Hart, Mr. Bowen, board members. Before I get started in sharing my areas of focus from last year and talking about this year, I just want to take a moment to obviously congratulate all the entire Hollenbrook staff. Just obviously, as you've seen some of the results and being last year as my first year as principal, I just couldn't have asked for a more dedicated, talented, and supportive team. And the hard work and commitment everyone puts into supporting our students truly showed in our results. These outcomes reflect the strength of our instruction, collaboration, and shared focus on student growth. So I'm just incredibly proud of some that are here tonight. So I just wanted to obviously acknowledge them and congratulate them because they should be honored. So thank you for that. So as I take a look of some of our areas of focus for 24-25, I just want to highlight some important things. So to start off the school year, we obviously took a look at our NJSLA data and put a shared focus, of course, at HBS. Last year was the first year where intervention was placed in all student schedules for 30 minutes. So students that received those services were pulled out, so they're not missing any sort of new content and instruction. And those 30 minutes were utilized for students that were not pulled out for those sort of small group targeted instruction. And where we obviously focus on a lot of things that I'm going to talk about tonight in regards to comparing and contrasting of text and multiplication. During our faculty meetings once a week, we have what's called CART projects, and I want to thank obviously the coaches for this. And they would come into our faculty meetings once a month. They assisted our staff on these collaborative action research teams. So each groups of teachers kind of self-selected something they wanted to work on and implement in their classrooms. And a lot of their CART projects were associated things that they wanted to improve on personally. They took more ownership because they were allowed to choose, and then they shared it out with staff throughout our faculty meetings. Also, we created schedules for delayed openings and early dismissals, where we ensured that we prioritized instruction in math and ELA, so time wasn't taken away from the subject matters during those sort of altered schedules. And of course, we had special events as well. For our ELA and math, last year we focused on, and you can see from similar schools, the comparing and contrasting of two texts. And I just want to share the positive news that all the evidence statements associated with that, we did see an increase and we were above the state. On the math side of things, we focused on multiplication like I talked about, and something really cool that we did last year, and I appreciate Ms. Winter being here, and she was a big force in helping with this. We did math in action. So with our math coach as well, we did some assemblies and some classroom projects where we would tie in math to real life. So we brought in like a shelter of animals, and there were these math projects associated with the amount of money that the shelter made and how they donated things. And we also ran fundraisers. So we really tried to take math and tie it to real life, and we're still working on those things this year as well. It's really cool to see the application of math to real life. So as I take a look at this year, some things for Hollenbrook. Really looking forward to this year. We started departmentalization of our 4th grade. So last year, 5th grade was departmentalized, whereas 4th grade was standalone islands, so they would have just that one teacher. And this year, I'm really excited that we are now truly one building where both grade levels experience departmentalization. So I think this truly allows teachers to specialize in content, and it allows students to start to begin that sort of independence that we're looking for at Hollenbrook and experience 2 staff members, allowing students to walk by themselves in other classrooms. I think it's really cool to see. We also started Bobcat Block this year. It prioritizes longer times in lunch and recess, so we added 10 minutes for lunch and for recess, where we prioritize, obviously, the importance of student wellness. I just finished up some of them today. I had data chats with individual staff members on in-service days, which was today, where we take a look at NJSLA results and have conversations. And we're also continuing with the CART model this year for our faculty meetings. For what we're focusing on for mathematics and ELA this year, on the math side of things, we were up above the state, but we still saw a room for improvement on modeling. So we'll be taking a look at that this year. And then on the ELA side, even though we did well and we saw improvement, I still think there needs to be that focus on the comparing and contrasting of 2 texts. And as you can see, that was a conversation amongst other buildings. Questions for Hollenbrook?
So the 3rd graders that we saw in the SLA data are now 4th grade students. So
Correct.
What is kind of the plan of action? It looked like a fairly large group of students also.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a huge part of our data conversation chats, especially with 4th grade today. And I think the big thing here in talking about that departmentalization, allowing staff to really specialize in those content areas versus teaching all subject matters is going to help with that. And also here, obviously at Hollenbrook, identifying students in the intervention and working with, 2 intervention teachers here today. Their groups of students have grown, so we've worked with ensuring that they're able to see all students, and we don't ensure that they're not pulled from missing new content. And then I just think those sorts of conversations, ensuring that instruction in this place is going to help. Thank you. I'll turn it over to Mr. Charleston and Ms. Mooney for the middle school.
I didn't stand on my back, so I was pacing in the back. I apologize. So our focus for last year, the biggest thing that we did last year is we changed our schedule pretty drastically at the middle school. It emphasized equal instructional time in math and language arts. We also instituted some rotation in our day. So our morning rotates and our afternoon rotates as well, so that students will see the same classes at the same time. It freshens it up for the students. And also the early results back from the teachers is that they were able to, there was deeper engagement with the kids in their individual classes. We do have the opportunity periods, daily lunch, recess, and flex for our students. We have ELA and math coaches dedicated at the middle school level. So we have 2 of those. And last year we were working on sheltered English instruction. What that is, it's a program that our teachers engage with It's 15 hours of professional development. It's best practices in teaching MLs, multilingual learners, or ESL students in their classes. The year prior was math and language arts. This year was social studies. 2 years ago was language arts and math. Last year was social studies and science. Our biggest focus last year was going to be on 8th grade math. That was our focus, and we were pleased with the results that came in. So the schedule and new materials resulted in most areas an increase in math and language arts, not all. And most grades, all grades in math showed high performance and high growth by year's end, and except for 8th grade, we're still showing high performance. They all showed high performance and high growth as well in language arts. We have a renewed focus this year on the intervention and referral service model through MTSS, so making sure that we are identifying students as they get to the middle school that had not fallen through the cracks at all. By the time they get to us, that there may be some students that were missed. We want to make sure that our processes in identifying students and getting them the help and support that they need continues to be as robust as possible. We're finishing up sheltered English instruction. All of our special education teachers and encore teachers will be getting this year. That means that all teachers, except for new teachers coming into the district, would have been trained in this model. We have to shift our focus. We have a new adaptable field test this year, the NJSLA. So the NJSLA test is actually going to be new this year for students, and there's a fall field test. So we have to get ready for that. Our window for us in Hollenbrook is actually the next couple of weeks. We have a very specific goal this year of making sure that we know every kid, who they are, and how best we can serve their needs. By the time that kids get to middle school, it was brought up a few times, there are a couple of kids who have a self-fulfilling prophecy that they're not good at something. So trying to break that habit with those kids and make sure that they understand that they are good, they can learn, is a big focus for us. And keeping kids in school. So we've had absences have a detrimental effect on students across the board. And we take kids out for when kids miss 2 or more days a month of school, it adds up. And that's missed instruction that's really hard for them to get back. So making sure that we continue to promote a great learning environment for our kids. Math and language arts focus is never going to go away. We're going to continue to focus on that. We need to continue to make sure that we are addressing all of our needs. Systemically, there is a transitional gap. If you look back over the course of the last couple of years, there's always been a transitional gap drop coming to the middle school. From the 2018-19 all the way to now. So we want to focus on that. If you dig further into the subpopulation, there seems to be a bigger piece of evidence that directly relates to our students who are in special education programs. And trying to figure out exactly why they are not performing to the best of their abilities, and making sure that we're really addressing the needs of them, and we're connecting those special education teachers with our content specialists as well, so that they're getting the best professional help. We're settling into the second year of our schedule, and we're dialing in some of our new materials for math with EdGems and our new writing benchmarks. That's all I have.
Thanks, Tim. I think I'm correct, this concludes our assessment presentation. This is everything. Just know as a board, right, we talk about a lot of things. I'll be very brief, I promise, very brief. We talk about, you hear discipline reports, HIB, we talk about absenteeism, belonging for all of our subpopulations, how we have to follow curriculum. We work with teachers to make sure they're following the curriculum and implementing it and seeking coaches and supervisors as support. I want to just remind everybody, this is where the rubber hits the road, right? When we're sending home absenteeism letters to parents and they might be upset that they got their second letter, just know it's because we want kids in school, right? Because we want to monitor staff attendance. We want them in school too, because at the end of the day, these are the results. When we say we want the curriculum to be implemented and we want the teachers to work with the coaches, here's why. because we get good results when those things happen. Kids are in school, teachers are in school, and everybody's learning and feels supported. We get great results. Thank you.
Thank you, all people that presented. Thank you very much for your time and presenting a very comprehensive report on the scores and assessments. Next item on our agenda is comments from the public. As I mentioned about a little while ago, we're going to modify this slightly. Usually it's only for items on the agenda, but we're going to open it for any items on and off the agenda. So if you have any comments, now's the time to make them. You can come up. Please come to the podium. Write your name and town you're from on the attendance sheet. Please state it, and you can ask your comments. The way public comments works is we're going to hear all comments, and then at the end, we'll either address or not address them in public or private afterwards, depending on the comments. But we will listen to all comments first before we make any comments from the board. So if anyone has comments, come on up.
I guess I will do the honors. So, my name is Devarshi Upadhyay. Good luck to anyone that can spell it. Before I make my comment, this is my first board meeting. I am thoroughly impressed. And I think I speak for all of us that are here. A huge amount of thank you to all the educators, the teachers, the administration, Dr. Hart, to the Board of Ed team. This was truly an eye-opener. We came for completely different reasons, and I'm going home with a completely different mindset. I really thought, I really mean it from the bottom of my heart. I have a newfound respect for teachers, for principals, for administration team, for superintendents, for the Board of Education. I had a completely incorrect conception of what the board does and how you guys operate. So a round of applause for all of you guys. Fabulous job. And you make this material so much fun. I really, I mean, you know, it was an eye. Having said that, we're going to resort to a very, very personal request that we're bringing up to the board's attention. I have just moved into, along with about 34 homes, into Reddington Township, which is right off of White House Station, basically. And our request is the school, very, very, compared to what you guys are dealing with, it's very selfish of us to bring it. However, it does need addressed too, because to you, you are dealing with district. To us, we're dealing with just our child and our community and our request. So here it goes. The school bus stops in front of our community. My home is about a mile in, with peaks and valleys. And I have a 1-year-old, like a first grader, who goes along with a few other people who have similar situation. Our request is the bus come inside the community. It doesn't need to stop at all 24 homes. We have made stops. We presented to Dr. Hart with ample amount of data. He's done his best to support us as well. We've done some trial runs. And what it's coming out to is an 8-minute difference from what the school is presenting to us to say, okay, if we stopped at these 2 stops, it's going to add an additional 8 minutes to the school bus route. And that is detrimental to all the other kids on the bus as well. However, our studies find it a little bit different. And without making personal attacks, because that's not what the forum is here for, what I asked the board, as well as Dr. Hart and everyone else who's going to be in this consideration, is to take a second glance at it, because we feel it would serve best. Especially, we had a lot of rain recently. There's a lot of puddles. Kids love muddy puddles. They want to jump in muddy puddles right before school. And despite what you tell them, you've got 24 kids who are like, "Ooh, muddy puddle, let's jump in it," get on the bus, and then came home to say, "You know, the whole day I was wet." So we think some of these issues can be addressed a little different if the bus comes inside. And then there's a whole safety issue as well. We're right off of 22. I know the bus stops on 22 as well, on homes. As far as the timeliness is concerned, we have done our own research, and we feel like, imagine all those 24 homes were actually on the street, stretched out. The bus would be stopping at least 2 stops between those, rather than just making 1 stop and 24 kids are coming up to it. So I know I'm rambling on a little bit. I'm so excited with this stuff. I'm really, you guys got me the juices from it. So with that said, again, thank you so much. At 9 o'clock, you guys are here for our kids, my kid, and I'm truly happy to be here. I'm definitely going to be keep coming back because this is truly exciting. I'm going to pass it on to somebody else who may want to come up and make a comment. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, and thank you for making an exception as well.
Especially the fall and winter is coming, it would be like impossible for all 39, 20 kids to come.
The more names, the better, guys.
My name
You
is
tried that once. We were all in my conference room, right?
My name is Sanjeev and I belong to the same community as well.
Yeah, but just sign it, yeah.
Yes, I will do that. So, with the fall coming and ice will be there, snow will be there. It will be hard for all like 24, 20 cars to be on that road and park and drop the kids to the bus. It will be unsafe as well. It's also stopped the traffic on the old highway 22 as well. There are a lot of parking issues as well. Safety issues and fairness for all the kids to be there. So think on that lines and see how we can maybe accommodate in this request as well. See how it looks. Thank you. Anybody else?
Any-
My name is Bhaskar Karavati, and I'm one of the neighbors moved into that community, consisting of 39 houses. Out of that, 36 are done. I'm sorry, 33 are done, and another 6 to be closed. So, yeah, earlier when we reached out to our transportation department office, we were shot down saying that construction was in there. Now the construction is about to be closed in a couple of months, and yeah, as Dr. Hart helped us kind of take the trial run before, I kind of opened up some of the challenges and all that stuff, pretty much like he knows and explained. And main thing is security concern, especially like the middle school and the high school kids. I mean, some of our parents, like they go along with them or sometimes they let them go. So they all go to the main old Route 28, that's where the bus stops, and they're all by themselves. So that's one of the things. And now it's okay, at least the daylight is there. But with the winter coming in, the first stop, it's like at 7 a.m. in the morning. So which is like pretty dark out there. So unless a parent goes there, then it's a challenging. That's one of the another thing. And also, yeah, with the last, my other colleagues already mentioned about the rain and other stuff, and also the winter coming up. That's where we are more concerned about. And a bunch of us work in the city, and it's kind of like hard for us to kind of balance between this dropping, picking up from the top, from there to there. And especially when we have like an extended family, they can come and just pick up those kids right across our like the stops we proposed. So please accommodate our request. And as I earlier said, like there are multiple stops on the old Route 28, like a few hundred meters, 250 meters apart. So which is like not fair, or like our request is not fair. We have about total 19 students attending various elementary, middle, and high school from that new community development. So yeah, with the 1 or 2 stops, at least we can grab about like 10 to 15 students right from there. So with a 5 minutes or like 6 minutes or 8 minutes, adding up to the current lengthy travel of about 45 minutes, I don't think it's an unreasonable request, but I know whoever steps into that bus as a first child, yeah, he has to wait about like 45 minutes or 50 minutes. And definitely I think it may require like another bus, that entire route to be split into 2 routes or something, and add an extra bus or whatever needed. And that way, at least that whole thing cut short by like 30 minutes or like a half of that. So that helps everybody in the long run. So that's what I would like to suggest. And second thing is, if that is not possible, then at least optimize the route, that whole route, and see wherever you can cut short or like minimize the timing for the overall tour or like a bus trip. And that probably helps also in the current school year. I think that's pretty much sums it from my side, and thank you for the timing and opportunity. And I'm not sure what products you guys use for all these data analytics, but it's awesome. I would like to understand and see and learn about that. And yeah, we are on the technology side, so yeah, definitely curious to know. Thank you.
Any other comments from people in the audience? Anything else? No. Okay. Thank you. All right, so that will conclude our open public comments for the first session. Dr. Hart, did you want to address this at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have an answer for you yet, but I appreciate your patience in waiting as we went through our presentations as well. I'd like to say it was kind of part of the plan to have you be so impressed with our student achievement data, but thank you for your patience. I want to reassure the board, we have met and we have talked. And I want the board to know a little bit of the background, what we've done, and then I'll make a recommendation about where we go from here, and I'll just do it in brief. I received Mr. Kodavati's and neighborhood, can we just say et al, right?
Yeah.
There's a group email that I received initially about the Sanderson Court neighborhood. The bus stop stops at the edge of the neighborhood, and all of the students come out to the bus stop and board the bus there. The request was to drive through the neighborhood and have 2 stops in the neighborhood to see if we could go through and then still have a reasonably timed bus ride. So the first thing we did, I think you all saw me, was drive through with Marcy. So Marcy and I took a bus ride and we drove around some of the neighborhoods that were requesting some stop changes. This was one of those neighborhoods and we timed it, and there were some concerns that I initially wrote to all of you about it being an active construction area. The fact that sometimes when there was oncoming traffic with the construction zone, the bus had to stop and wait while oncoming traffic came as they went around the kind of the cul-de-sac, if you will. So initially I was like, I don't think this is really going to work. And then we met to discuss, and we came up with what I thought was the reasonable solution is let's give it a trial run, right? Let's take a week. We collected data, right? As you can see, we're data people. We collected some data to see how long the run was, picking up the students at the current bus stop, which is at the end of the street. And then we went into the neighborhood with the 2 proposed stops, and you were all very great in ensuring that all the neighbors knew where to be. So we did a 1-week trial run going to the neighborhood. The results were these. The bus ride is already a long ride. This is an approximately 45-minute bus ride, and it ended up being on some days as long as 53 minutes. And the students, so that was data point number 1. And then number 2 was the bus was getting to White House School just as White House School's, the bell was ringing, if you will, right? This was the last bus to pull in the parking lot. So I emailed the group. I also had the police stay at the bus stop too and watch as students boarded to see if there was any inherent safety issue as well. Because of this, I made the decision to go back to the old way. You all know we went back to the old way where the bus was back out on Old Highway 22, and the students were boarding there to make it safe and efficient, right? We were going back to the efficiency in the part, so we went back to the single stop. This is a greater question, and we talked about this in our meeting. We generally have buses stop on 22, Old Highway 28. We don't go into cul-de-sacs or neighborhoods. If you live in, I think, Lake Cushatunk, we stay on Van Horn, and everybody comes out, and the bus stops along the route. If the board, I think the big picture here is if the board wants to change practice, we need to look at all routes, and we need to look at our entire transportation operation. If we want to make exceptions 1 route at a time, we can do that as well. But the logic behind it was this extended the length of the route, making it longer for the students who were on it, making the bus arrive at White House, 5 to 8 minutes later than the original time. So there was some thinking behind the decision. This is not the only request we had this year. There are other requests. My recommendation is to review this in much more detail in our finance committee. We function as a board of committees. So we're not going to hash this out tonight right now. We'll go into a finance facilities committee where transportation is discussed, and we'll discuss this as not only your specific request, but a larger district issue as well. So that would be my recommendation, but I wanted the board to have the context that this has been, I believe, collaborative, right? I appreciate everything that we've talked about. We made an attempt, and every decision we make is
a cost benefit analysis. The benefit was we could accommodate going into the neighborhood, but we extended the route. And whether that was fair or not to the entire route and to the students arriving at White House School 5 to 8 minutes later than typical was the question I wrestled with. So I made a decision, right or wrong. That was,
I did want to
we
take an
talked
opportunity
about.
to say this in no way, shape, or form was us against Dr. Hart or us against the school. He's been more than collaborative. I would say, especially looking at everything you guys have going on right now, I'm surprised he's been that collaborative. Had I been in his shoes, I would have been like, no. Why? Because I'm the superintendent. Having said that, the goal here is, and as you rightfully mentioned, it's not just for us, right? It's not just, we're moving in. And when I say we, I mean people are moving in. There will be more communities. Ryan Holmes is building more. Our own community that I know of the developers, they're building more. And as they build, people will come, as the old saying goes. So the school's gonna get busier and busier. And if we stick to this one, policy of not going in, we're gonna continue to have parents like myself who don't mind sitting here, gathering all this in, have the same enthusiasm to say, selfishly speaking, I care about my kid and I want the best for him. And I'm sure every parent is gonna have that, but not at the expense of having another kid have on 45-minute bus route. But then having said that, guys, should there be 45-minute bus routes? That's the bigger picture as well for your next meeting when you guys have that. Because I don't think a 6-year-old should be in a bus for 45 minutes just to get to school and come back. So maybe we need to add more buses, as Dr. mentioned. Having said that, it's not in any way, shape, or form.
You promised me more bus drivers, by the way.
I did.
You said you were gonna recruit.
They tried, in fact, they tried, and the problem is, he's way up north, so.
Yeah, we did try it. And then, again, I will be here at that finance committee meeting as well, because I think we bring a ton of value of realism of what the parents are facing on our different note. I don't want to take too much of your time. I know you guys want to go home as well, but
Thank you.
just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
So I'm just going to close out. First of all, thank you for coming in and voicing your concerns. Dr. Hart, thank you for going on rides and checking around, doing your trial of those. Good to hear. But we will take this up in the finance committee, as Dr. Hart said. Michelle's our finance chair, and she'll make sure it gets added to the agenda, and we'll work with the administration, and then Dr. Hart will get back to you on any action items that may come out of it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. And we do have great board meetings, so if you do want to come, we always have exciting agenda items. They vary
Try
every
to keep
month.
me out. That's the problem. Thank you guys. Thank you so much.
If there's no other comments, we're going to move on to the rest of our agenda. I invite you all to stay as we go through our business, but you're more than welcome to go. Thank you. Did you guys need a break or do you want to plow?
And you want to take a
Take a break or do you want to just like
I
get
mean, we've
through?
been here for almost 4 hours. so-
Go, let's go, just
Yeah.
keep
I'm
going.
gonna
Keep
get
going.
my bedtime
You need a
notes.
break.
Yeah.
Just go keep-
All right,
Are
so
you okay with talking to me?
next item.
Justine is just okay. She said it's okay to just keep going.
Okay, good. So the next item on the agenda is correspondence. We received one correspondence. It is on record with the board secretary. So we'll move on to board actions. The first is the approval of administrative reports. We have 2 items. One is the enrollment drill reports, and the other one is the board goals that we reviewed last month. So can I get a motion for items 101 and 102, and then a second? All right, and the second, do we have any comments? Okay, Mr. Bowman.
Mrs. Cassidy.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore.
Yes.
Mr. Lopes.
Yes.
Mrs. Benser.
Yes.
Mr. Pieros.
Yes.
Mrs. Rad.
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto.
Yes.
Mr. Rizzo.
Yes.
Passes.
Okay, next item is the approval of minutes. We have one item, 201. Can I get a motion and then a second?
I'll move that one.
Good. You get a second?
Second.
Linda, second. Perfect. Any comments? Okay, Mr. Bowman.
Mrs. Cassidy.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore.
Yes.
Mr. Lopes.
Yes.
Mrs. Menser.
Abstain.
Mr. Pieros.
Yes.
Mrs. Rad.
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto.
Yes.
Mr. Rizzo.
Yes.
Passes.
Okay, next is finance and facilities. We will have a readout from the committee. But prior to that, can I get a motion for items 301 to 312 and then a second?
Motion. I'll second.
Second, okay, Michelle?
Okay, the Finance Committee report. The committee met on Friday, October 3rd. First topic was the referendum. The committee reviewed the referendum communication plan, dates for remaining school tours, and opportunities to inform voters in the district. The letter to registered voters providing information about the referendum was discussed and suggestions were made to enhance the content. The committee discussed scenario planning and next steps based on voter support of or lack of for the referendum to ensure clear plans are in place. Next topic, crosswalk on Reddington Road and Roosevelt Road. The committee discussed the suggestion that an ADA ramp, sidewalk, and signage be placed on property adjacent to the school property. The estimated cost of this project is $15,000 to $20,000. The committee recommends not pursuing the suggestion due to financial considerations. Next topic is bank interest. The committee reviewed the existing interest rate for the district and interest rates from surrounding districts, which are higher. We agree there is an opportunity to benefit from a higher interest rate and ask the business administrator to pursue negotiations with the current bank for a potentially higher rate. Next topic is a semi-corrective action plan. The district did not achieve the thresholds needed to qualify for reimbursement related to the semi-plan, which is similar to other districts where 90% of schools also did not qualify. The program thresholds are based on the number of students that are Medicaid eligible who also receive special services. The district will reassess opportunities to file in the future in the hopes of achieving the threshold, which is expected to be lowered from $26,000 to $3,000. Given the district missed the threshold, it's likely that the district may return the $5,000 in reimbursement to the state. Next topic, health benefits budget warning. The business administrator informed the committee of the state health plan 37% increase in January 2026, driven by both a 28% increase in medical and a 59% increase in prescription-related expenses. While Reddington Township School District is not in the state health plan, the increase is a signal that our expenses may also be in the double digits. These are unbudgeted increases that will create additional pressure on the budget next year. These expenses would qualify for a health waiver, allowing the district to exceed the 2% cap, meaning voter approval is not required, but the budget pressure from these increases would remain. Next topic, low-income student count. The low-income student count has tripled over time and is now 18% of the enrolled population. The district expects this to grow given the recent approval of the new township housing plan, which includes low-income housing. The district has comprehensive support programs in place for families in need, including free breakfast, reduced or eliminated Chromebook fees, and donations to support book fairs, holiday shops, etc. With the anticipated increase in the low-income student count, the district will need to reevaluate some of these support programs to cover the increased expenses. No action or decision was taken, but the topic was discussed to prepare the committee for the upcoming budget process. It is likely the district will need to reassess how to finance field trips for low-income families given increasing field trip prices. The bill list was available to committee members for review, and the next meetings were scheduled, the first for November 12th at 8:30 and the second for December 3rd at 10 a.m.
Thank you, Michelle. Any discussion?
I just wanted to make a comment on the crosswalk on Reddington Road and Roosevelt Road. I didn't get to connect with you about what discussion took place in the committee, but I just want to voice support for that because I have been a pedestrian trying to cross at that exact intersection, and whether we want to believe it or not, people are crossing there. And if there is a way to make it safer, I feel like maybe this is something we can continually revisit. If there's a grant that's possible that we can apply for. Having, for every Halloween parade, I park on that side of the road and have to walk because there's just no parking anywhere else. And it's very scary because you kind of can't see cars coming from the one direction. So if there was a crosswalk and signage saying pedestrians in the road, I feel like it would at least give me more sense of security crossing there. So I just wanted to say, I hope that can be revisited in the future.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, Mr. Bowman?
Mrs. Cassidy.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore.
Yes.
Mr. Lopes.
Yes.
Mrs. Benser.
Yes.
Mr. Piero.
Yes.
Mrs. Rad.
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan.
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto.
Yes.
Mr. Rizzo.
Yes.
Passes.
Okay, next item on the agenda is our education technology report. Beth will have a readout, but prior to that, we have 3 items to move, 401 to 403. Can I get a second, a first and then a second?
I'll move that one.
Second, Michelle.
Okay, Beth?
The Ed Tech Committee met on October 6th. The first item we discussed was the NJSLA and district assessment presentation, which we saw tonight. I'm not going to go through my notes because it's exactly what you saw. Same thing with the dynamic learning map. That's for grades 3 through 8. Next, we discussed preschool data presentation. Mrs. DeQuisto presented on the student and program data that is beginning to be collected, for the preschool program. Since these are new assessments for the district, there is no comparable or growth data to provide at the moment. It was suggested that Mrs. DeQuisto present any findings in the spring or when data is aggregated. Early anecdotal reports from kindergarten teachers are that students who participated in the preschool program have transitioned very quickly into the kindergarten setting, allowing more time for instruction. Who is writing these minutes? Sorry.
It's the time, it's
It's like
almost
the
9:30.
typing voice and then the speaking, sorry. AI committee formed. Dr. Hart presented a timeline and process for creating an AI review committee to make recommendations on protocols or policy for appropriate use of AI in the schools. Committee members will include a principal, supervisor, technology coordinator, library media specialist, several teachers, paraprofessional, non-certificated staff, parents, and students as needed. The committee plans to make a recommendation to the board by June of 2026. A board member shared an article about creating an AI literacy framework that will be shared with the new review committee. And then we scheduled our next meeting for November 17th.
Thank you, Beth. Any comments or discussion? Okay, vote.
Mrs. Cassidy.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore.
Yes.
Mr. Lopes.
Yes.
Mrs. Menzer.
Yes.
Mr. Pieros.
Yes.
Mrs. Rad.
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan.
Yes.
Mrs. Pinto.
Yes.
Mr. Rizzo.
Yes.
Passes.
Next item is from personnel. We do not have a committee readout this month, but we do have 9 items to move. So we have items 501 through 509. Can I get a motion and a second on these items?
I'll move. Okay.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, Ms. Bowman?
Mrs. Cassidy.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore.
Yes.
Mr. Lopes.
Yes.
Mrs. Menzer.
Yes.
Mr. Pieros.
Yes.
Mrs. Rad.
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan.
Yes.
Mrs. Pinto.
Yes.
Mr. Rizzo.
Yes.
Passes.
Okay, next item is communication. We do not have a readout either this month. We have 1 item to move, 601. Can I get a motion and a second?
I'll move, Pam. I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, Ms. Bowman?
Mrs. Cassidy.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore.
Yes.
Mr. Lopes.
Yes.
Mrs. Menzer.
Yes.
Mr. Pieros.
Yes.
Mrs. Rad.
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan.
Yes.
Mrs. Pinto.
Yes.
Mr. Rizzo.
Yes.
Passes.
Okay, next item is unfinished business. Open up, is there any unfinished business on stories?
Oh, I was just thinking last time we discussed the NJSBA workshop next week, and I know tomorrow was the last chance for registering for governance training during the workshop, so I just want to remind everybody.
Did you register for government?
I did
You're
register.
doing it early. Nice. Anyone else
You
register?
said I could.
Would only be, I guess, me and Linda or Richo would register.
Well, for the governance too, they
Yeah.
have 3 and 4.
The governance 3 is available too, if people want to do it, I think, right? Okay, I think we have till March, right, actually, to complete it, right? Next year, or is it April? When do we actually have to complete the governance training?
Governance training has to be completed by December every year.
December.
But, you know, in your first year, you're supposed to complete by April.
April.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and I think most of us are going to NJB, SBA, except for Paolo, and I think Rich is not going, right? I got one. Okay, all right. The next item is new business from the board. We have a committee readout from the Green Committee.
Yeah, so the Green Committee met on October 1st. We discussed the strategic focus for the 25-26 school year. which I had presented to the board earlier after our executive committee session in the summer. For Pillar 1, reduce environmental impact and costs, Mr. Bohm gave the committee an update on the referendum. We watched the video and shared the website. The projects that we saw in the presentation were marked with a sustainability, like little leaf logo in the bottom right corner, if anyone had noticed. That was on suggestion from the, actually that may have been, there was a suggestion, yeah. The next thing we talked about under Pillar 1 was the capital projects. Mr. Bohm also gave us an update on all the projects that we're doing over the summer. For Pillar 2, outdoor spaces update, there was a grant that RMS received or will be receiving for $39,000, and that's for trees. Betsy Freeman is working with community volunteers to figure out that project. This grant addresses all sustainability pillars. It's a great partnership with many local entities. The tree planting will happen in the spring. The other grant the district received was that $22,500 wellness grant that was with our health insurance provider. I'm just trying to go through quickly because I know you guys have heard all this. For Pillar 3, we discussed the sustainable jersey silver status and digital star status. For unfinished and new business, we discussed that green coordinator stipend, the funds from that was discussed in the finance committee. And the Green Committee is going to work to propose initiatives that we could spend those funds on. The next item, food as a way to teach about different cultures and history in a healthy and fun way. Mr. Bohm said the HSA had reached out to see if the schools were interested in partnering in a food program of some sort, maybe along with Machio's. So details will be worked out for that, but it was suggested maybe have a partnership with Grow Row. I know the 7th grade students also, 7th grade, I don't know exactly actually what students go to.
Student council.
The student council goes to Grow Row. Okay. Yeah. And then we talked about the TBS Forest Hill Trail in Learning Woods. That's the piece of property that's behind Three Bridges School. And Mr. Robert Becker from the Township's Environmental Commission had suggested maybe making improvements on that trail so that the students could utilize that maybe on a field trip or walk through during the school day. And then Mr. Bohm gave the committee an update on solar, which basically financing has been secured, submittals are at the state. The financier and companies say that all the approvals are, we have all the approvals that are needed, and the July 2026 is still the date that we're looking at for completion. And the next Green Committee will be on December 2nd.
Thank you, Beth. Any comments or discussion? Okay. The next item on the agenda is our second open public forum. No one's in the audience. Anyone online? Okay, so we'll close that out. The last item is adjournment. Can I get a motion and a second? Mr. Bohm?
Mrs. Cassidy.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore.
Yes.
Mr. Lopes.
Yes.
Mrs. Mentor.
Yes.
Mr. Fierro.
Yes.
Mrs. Brad.
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan.
Yes.
Mrs. Pinto.
Yes.
Mr. Rosales.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Ready.